You know that guy who just before the green flag keys up his mic and asks, "Anybody got a setup?" Well, this is him. This is Adam, and hey, Adam needs some help. On the other hand, this guy over here, this is Steve. Steve is a solid racer and he knows his way around the garage. Steve's problem is time. With a job and a family, he can't find enough time to build competitive setups and to race as often as he likes. But as luck would have it, Steve knows a secret. He lets the Majors Garage crew chiefs do the setup work so he can focus on the racing. At majorsgarage.com, Steve can get setups for over 60 cars on the iRacing service. So no matter what series he wants to jump into, he is covered. Somebody, anybody, really should tell Adam. See you at the garage.
One consistent factor throughout the seasons of the majors is the presence of open wheels on ovals. And one of the greatest challenges in that realm is Pocono. So this year, our drivers will have to face off against the tricky triangle as we get ready to watch the Wildcard Triple Crown. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Roush Racing driver Joey Atterbury. Behind the scenes, our director, Daniel Costello, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. If you're not familiar with this unique speedway, let's head to our track guide for more info.
Pocono Raceway in Long Pond, Pennsylvania is probably one of the most unique oval tracks in the country and has a long and storied history of racing. Opening in 1971, they wanted this place to be different. So why not make it have 3 turns? That's right, a triangle. But isosceles triangles are boring, so let's model each turn differently with different radiuses and banking. So around here, you have this incredibly long front straight, known as the Long Pond Straight, 3,740 feet long and 100 feet wide. It's known for the incredible fanning out that happens in starts and restarts, but you have to get sorted before you get to turn 1. Turn 1 is banked at 14 degrees, modeled after the old Trenton Speedway. It gets tight quick, and you need to pick the right line to be fast here. Your lap depends on it. Turn 2 is banked at 9 degrees and inspired by the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It's fast and quick, and if you hear somebody refer to the tunnel turn during the race, it's turn 2 they were talking about with the tunnel to the infield running underneath. Turn 3 is only banked at 6 degrees, and it's modeled after Milwaukee. It's long and sweeping, almost feels like it won't end before you jump back onto that truly endless front stretch. Pocono is most known for stock car racing, but it was originally designed for open wheel racing, and USAC Kart and IndyCar all had tenures here. Today we race on the new version of Pocono and iRacing. With its repaved track surface and redone interior walls, it's as fast and tight as ever. And we'll be sure to put the tricky in tricky triangle.
Well, 3 corners and each one of them different, Joey. This place earns that tricky triangle name.
It's a pretty interesting place up there in the Poconos. It's a giant racetrack, 2.5 miles long. Not a whole lot of banking in the turns, but don't let that deceive you because it is incredibly fast because it is so wide. And you're right. 3 turns, a tricky triangle. Turns 1 and 2 is actually based off of Trenton Speedway, believe it or not. Turn 3, call it, up at the top there, because I'm going to go 5-turn Pocono here, is Indianapolis. You notice how it's just a simple 90-degree turn. And then down here at the bottom, turn 3 or turn 4 and 5, depending on how you look at it, is actually based off of the Milwaukee Mile. So look at it as the tricky triangle of 3 turns or 5 turns.
I've heard that debate before, and yeah, definitely one of the more interesting aspects of this circuit. Now, as for the championship and where we sit right now, the Pro Atlantic Drivers standings sees Oscar Fredriksson up at the top of things. You can see that the SimRace Sweden Esports Pro team has very much invaded this series with 4 out of your top 6 positions in the championship. They have proved to be a force to be reckoned with. Garen Batten still has a chance to try and jump up in there as he's only 93 points back. And you can see the level of points that we're dealing with. 93 is not that big, frankly. Jeff Schmeier, who started off the season very well, is still sitting in 4th and also could be in the mix. But we also have a teams championship in this series, Joey.
We do have that teams championship, and just like you were saying, those guys up at the top of the driver standings are also dominating the team standings. SimRace Sweden Esports right now with a 537-point lead over Fusion Gold. Dog Bear Bite sitting there in the 3rd position. And then things get close there. Grizzly TFR nipping at the heels of the Dog Bear Bite team in 4th place there. U-Box Goody inside the top 5. Also have Easy Grass Yorkshire, Sapphire SimSport Atlantic, Evolve SimSport Atlantic, and Satellite Racing in terms of the 9 teams participating.
As for our race today, because each race in this series is quite different from one another, it's actually pretty simple. It's 200 laps, round 10 out of 11. This is the penultimate round, so that points battle gets ever more important. We're running the Dallara IR18 here today, and at this track, that is going to produce tremendous speeds. Open setup as they always do, and at this track, you definitely want a setup that is comfortable, at least as best as you can attempt, around the 3 different bankings that you've got in each of the corners. And as always, we have that one spare car. That will probably be a big talking point because there's usually not small accidents at this track. And if you get involved in one early, well, that removes your safety net for the remainder of the race. And it looks like we are actually heading into the qualifying already on this one. I don't think track position going to be as critical considering the slipstreaming we usually see, but I'm sure, you know, being up and out of some of the melee in the middle of the pack would be desirable, Joey.
I think track position is always important. It doesn't matter if we're road racing, if we're dirt track racing, it doesn't matter. You want to be towards the front of the field. However, I do think there is a big caveat here in today's race because that open setup that you just mentioned, it can create some pretty big differences in terms of the pace of the cars. We might see the front guys start to stretch it out and the rear guys maybe struggle with the setup a little bit. We'll just kind of have to find out if all of them are stable or if some of them are fast.
Yeah, that's a good question. We're watching Mark Rediker right now. We've got a few lap times on the board. They only get 4 laps around here to try and set their best time, and that will decide the order. Wayne Hutchison, currently your quickest. There he is on the screen now, and he's got all of about 36 thousandths over Ray Partridge, who is known for being very good on the ovals. This series, if you're not familiar, races all different types of disciplines of racing. So not everybody here is used to oval racing.
I'm just looking up and down on that timing tower on the left side of the screen there. I've got to go all the way back to 13th place to find a car that is slower than 1/4 of a second off of our provisional pole. And in fact, if I go through the gaps between each cars, first and second, 36 thousandths, second and third, 35 thousandths, third and fourth, 27 thousandths. It is incredibly close out there.
On board with Garen Batten. I mean, he's at 214 through the corner. That's through the corner. Just unbelievable speeds here. By the end of the straightaway, he'll get up to, looks like 221, and now he steers in. Interesting, he must have quite a bit of downforce on that car then, because I would expect that long front straight, he would gather a lot more speed.
I think what you're saying, Joe, is do we need to start simulating G-forces here in iRacing? I love playing my flight sims, and they do that all the time. Are these guys going to start blacking out like they did back at Texas?
That'd be an interesting addition, because I think you'd have fewer people who would take the Indy cars to places like Daytona and, Talladega. And Garen Batten's 3rd lap, unfortunately, not going to count as he brushed the wall on the exit. So looks like
you see what he did there, though? He slammed the brakes to not actually complete that lap, so he's going to hit the reset button and probably have one more true green flag lap after that reset.
Good point. Yeah, great call on that, and very heads up on his part. Ray Partridge just took the pole away from Wayne Hutchison. It's even closer than what we saw before, 0.03 of a second between them. Brian Barnes now heading out, has only completed one lap, so Barnes could be a real competitor here, where we still don't see a time from, about 10 cars there at the bottom of the field. So this could definitely change around we've got 10 minutes in this qualifying. We're not even halfway through. There's a number of drivers that are trying to game this and see if they can get a little bit of cloud cover, it looks like.
Yeah, and I think the one that I'm pretty surprised about, Ryan Walker has not put down a lap time yet. I know that he is very proficient on the ovals, has got a Indianapolis win in the years prior, so I'm looking forward to seeing that number 3 car out there. And I was just checking out the times again. It's gotten even closer. Check this out. The top 6 only separated by 7/100ths of a second.
Wow. And Garen Batten is one of those that we saw unfortunately fail that second lap and is just getting ready to start his next one. Lynn Kinchlow coming off of turn 1 down the backstretch himself. Has he set a time? Yes, he's in 25th currently. Only has set 1 lap. There's definitely a lot of drivers that are trying to use every tool in the tool belts and get the most out of this qualifying session. And that really shows in the closeness of our time. So comes off the final corner onto the main straight. I see if this is starting a new lap or if he's just finishing second. Yeah, so he's starting a qualifying run here.
I always enjoy this onboard view from inside Lynn Kinchlow, and you look up at the top of the screen, you see the virtual mirror, then you see the time delta. He's actually just trailing a little bit off of what his fastest lap time was this session. You see it about 11/100ths down right now. He just maybe adjusted the brake bias going into the tunnel turn here, turn number 2. And then you also see that kind of that green box above the steering wheel below that time delta. We have officially figured it out. That is like a virtual rear view mirror, a radar, if you will. So that way his spotter can essentially visualize where the cars are. Little arrows will pop up if somebody's behind him or to the left side. It's a pretty neat piece of equipment.
Good third lap from him. That bumps him up into 18th now. He's got one more try at it. Looks like he's going to carry on as we watch Nick Sigley. He's recently put himself up to 15th, but this is going to be his second timed lap. His second lap did not count for him, and it's a 41.5, and he slows it down. He's not going to take the 4th lap. That's good enough for 7th for Nick.
See what the 614 is able to do is they actually enter pit road. I think all I see is Lynn Kinchlow about to cross the line again here. 41.678. So he is not going to improve in that number 44 car. Still got a couple minutes here in qualifying. And like you were saying, Joe, there's plenty of cars that have not put down a time yet. So they do have the opportunity. It's just a matter of if they will.
Well, with it being 41 seconds to get around here, once we get down to, I guess, a minute and 20, then you're not able to set a time because this is measured by laps. They do not let it run out and complete hot laps here. So they've got precious little time to get out there and set one final go at things if they want it. Once we hit that minute 20 to go mark, then any driver that is not on circuit and running is essentially done. I see Christian McCrelly hopping out there, and I think he's getting ready to set a time. He should have just enough. It's going to be tight, though. Yeah, he just passed the cones now.
I think I also see the 744. Yeah, this car right here, Michael Hogg, is going out there in the nice purple wheels out there with the black and white paint scheme. Definitely an eye-catching theme that he's got going on. But you're right. I don't know if there's actually going to be time to be able to complete the laps. I know typically in open qualifying, you can get the bonus time, but typically in solo qualifying, all you've got is when that timer runs out. They are doing 41-second laps, so if he can manage to cross the stripe here in the next, call it 12 seconds, he might be able to sneak it in. Nope, coming into pit lane.
Yeah, he's going to park it. McCrelly is going to carry on, but fourth lap doesn't count for him either. So that's it. That is everybody done, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, I don't see anybody else out on the track. That does give us a little bit of time here to give a mention to our sponsor, of course. Make sure and check out the Majors Garage, home of free Baseline Plus setups. Get help from any of the garage coaches 24/7. Sign up now for awesome, affordable monthly subscriptions, telemetry, coaching, and more by simply clicking on our link in the description below. Also, if you use our special discount code MajorsGSRC, you'll get 10% off. And our charity for this round is the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network. The Autistic Self-Advocacy Network seeks to advance the principles of the disability rights movement with regard to autism. ASAN believes that the goal of autism advocacy should be a world in which autistic people enjoy equal access, rights, and opportunities. They work to empower autistic people across the world to take control of their own lives and the future of their common community. They also seek to organize the autistic community to ensure their voices are heard in the national conversation about themselves. ASAN, nothing about us without us. So, with qualifying now officially done, that gives us a chance to go through our starting grid, and it is Ray Partridge on the pole. Wayne Hutchison will start next to him on the front row with Brian Barnes starting from third and Ryan Steele in the fourth spot. Daniel Blomqvist will be in P5. Garen Batten, good enough for sixth today. In row 4, it'll be Nick Sigley to the inside and Joseph Homan on the outside. Hakan Schutt will be in the ninth spot, and it's Jesper Eriksson rounding out your top 10.
And you've got your points standings leader here in 11th place. That is Oscar Fredrickson. Next to him is going to be Daniel Homer in 13th as Cedric Holbom, with Steven Paulison next to him in 14th. Tom Dreiling in 15th with Aiden Campbell starting 16th. Gary Thomas in 17th. Lynn Kinchlow, who were covered in qualifying, starting in 18th. And then in row 10 will be Sam Watley and Robert DeLoach.
Mark Redeker starts 21st today with Josh Hampton in 22nd. Then it's Jason Wallet in P23, followed by Ernie Ludwig in 24th. And last driver to set a time was George Lesko in 25th. Everybody else is gridded up according to iRating. Christian McCrelly will be 26th, Ryan Walker 27th, Brian Scrivener 28th, and Michael Hogg in 29th. Just a few more drivers as Cody Earl, Rob Courtney, Michael Lightly, and Craig Hawkins round out your 32 car field here today. Not quite an Indy 500 full field there, but pretty darn close, and should be a good number of cars to keep us busy.
It's always nice to see the majors pack the track out here, and I think when we talk about Pocono, when you get more than 35 cars, it can get very, very busy, especially with the speeds that we were telling everybody about in qualifying. What was it? 220 plus going into turn number 1, and they're going to be not too wide, but potentially 3 or even 4 wide on these opening laps. It is a draft fest here at Pocono.
Indeed, and that front straightaway, known for how wide it is, can see cars go 4, 5, 6. We've seen 7 wide in real life at
It's
times.
wild.
It's absolutely insane. I'm kind of curious if we're going to see that here, or if drivers will try to just settle in, because it's 200 laps. It's going to take a while before you get to really the important part of the race towards the end. I feel like part of the key, Joey, is just stay on that lead lap since we have no lucky dog, and just hang on.
And also save your fast repair, right? Don't go crashing into a wall or your competitor early on. You want to have your lifeline just in case something bad happens to you late in the race. You don't know if that tunnel turn is going to throw you a funky bounce and all of a sudden you spin yourself out. So don't go crazy here on the opening couple laps. I've got my eyes peeled on 10th and 11th place because Eriksson and Fredrickson are those two SimRace Sweden eSports Pro drivers that are on top of that point standings.
It's going to be important to them to try and enter the final round in a great position, because we're going open wheel racing again, but on the twisty bits at Zandvoort for the next round. That's going to be a lot harder to pass than what you've got here. So you don't want to put yourself behind the 8 ball. Pace car is in and the green flag is out. We go racing for 200 laps. What's this start going to look like as they fly down the main straight towards turn 1? You can definitely see them taking a number of lines on their way in. A little better than what we've seen sometimes, but still 3 and 4 wide. Some drivers hopping up to the high side and falling back. I think they want out of the chaos.
Yeah, I think there was one car, it might have even been Lynn Kinchlow, that got pushed up to the top side in turn number 1 and had to breathe way out of the throttle, lost a lot of track position, but even through the tunnel turn, there's contact up there for about 5th and 6th place. I think that it was Homan involved.
Yeah, he's lost a lot of speed. The car is still carrying on. How much damage does it have is the question. You can see it hop up into the air as it clipped the wall. And, coming off the corner, he has more problems. We got our first yellow. Brian Scrivener looks like he's part of it, along with Sam Watley.
It is always a choose-your-own adventure for the first couple laps here. You see, I think it was Ernie Ludwig involved, Sam Watley. I see Scrivener, like you said, kind of at the back of the field. See Hakan Schutt up here in the 8th place position. He actually moved up 1 position from where he started. And actually, Joe, Jesper Eriksson started back there in 10th. He finds himself inside the top 5, an aggressive opening lap.
So interesting note about Scrivener, now that I've had a chance to go and check out what happened on my screen. He actually dove into pit lane. I thought maybe to try and avoid the incident, but it looks like he's actually stopped in his pit stall. He'll get an end of line penalty for that because the pits would have absolutely been closed by the time he got in there.
So the first yellow flag of the day comes out at turn number 3 on the opening lap. And so the pace car will go out there and collect up our leader. I doubt anybody is going to be coming down pit road, and if they are, it's just going to be to fix up whatever damage they might have got on the opening lap. But I don't expect any early strategy cards to be played here. It's just too early.
Yeah, I mean, maybe some drivers at the very back might top up just to open things up for themselves. But yeah, it's you don't really see much in the way of strategy that's going to help you tremendously out here. So here's Ernie Ludwig. He gets involved in this, just drifts up a little bit high, and Sam gets the brunt of it, unfortunately, as he gets popped into the air, and he'll hit the inside safer barrier. Ernie, just runs into it as he runs out of racetrack, and also gets a black flag for his troubles going past the cones.
It can certainly add up rather quickly out there. And I was able to finally find the car that had a really, really rough opening lap. It was actually Daniel Blomqvist in that number 988. He started up inside the top 5, but he didn't get going very well off of the initial start. And then going into turn 1, he had about 2 or 3 cars underneath him. He had to lift way out of the throttle. But I do want to give credit to the 988 because he avoided the wall. Didn't cause a huge stack up behind, but he finds himself now buried in the middle of the pack.
So here's Ryan Walker, who's kind of towards the backside of the fields at this stage, 22nd, where he's running. Often have seen him try to kind of wait this out and make his move later on. I see Mark Redeker in. Looks like Christian McCrelly and Michael Hogg, Rob Courtney. Yeah, we got a few takers that are going to do some things. Ernie Ludwig, no surprise, he's going to try and take some repairs. Actually going to see if he takes his spare car here and watching to see if that ticks over. Only Sam Watley so far has taken his spare car out of those involved in incidents on that first lap. Ernie's going to hold on to his, so just repairs the car as much as he can and sends it back out.
Remember, it wasn't just those couple of cars in that turn number 3 incident. We saw a couple cars smack the wall coming up out of the tunnel turn number 2. So I shouldn't say that I'm surprised to see this many cars down pit road. And I think to your point that if you are in the back half of the field, specifically the back third of the field, I don't really see a penalty in coming down and topping it off. I don't think you're going to get a huge advantage on fuel, but hey, 4 laps is still 4 laps better than everybody else.
Well, 1 lap under green and 3 laps at yellow pace worth of fuel anyway.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
But yeah, if it comes down to it, if for whatever reason we go green and you get that extra little bit, then it could come back to help you later on. So as they come around. I think we should get the lights out this time by. We lost Ernie Ludwig off the lead lap, and it looks like Scrivener and Watley may have already called it a day, unfortunately, despite having that spare car if they so wanted. Just a few more, even on this lap, coming down pit lane to try and get even more. Is that some cars getting more repairs? That's Ryan Walker. So, no, he's topping up. And it looks like Mark Redeker, again, another car topping up. So, yeah, these are more drivers that are just trying to open up opportunities down the line and don't care about track position yet.
Exactly. Right. If you're sitting there in 25th place, I think Ryan Walker was in 22nd, you had called it. And so there's only a handful of cars behind him. We saw how chaotic it was on the opening restart. There's not really a penalty to come down and top it up with fuel. It just gives you more when it comes down to the next fuel stop or the next green flag run. So when you're in the back of the field, okay, no harm, no foul. Come in, get it topped up, and then get back out there on the racetrack. And actually, big shout out to Ryan Walker. I know that he's been a little bit sick this week with tonsillitis, so it's good to see him out there on the racetrack and participating, playing on the playground with all of his buddies.
Yeah, and I know how much he loves racing, so I'm sure he was eager to get back behind the wheel. So lights are out on the pace car. As we saw in the initial start, they don't have long to wait before they throw that green flag here. So as soon as that pace car is in, you're probably going to see cars taking off. As it is single file, though, so it'll be hard to try and game the system on that one. But you don't want drivers to run into one another. As we've seen in IndyCar oval restarts has certainly been a bit of a talking point. So here we go. Pace car coming off of turn 3 now, getting ready to head on in. That gives control over to Hutchison. And there it is. Green flag is out. He is on his way. He gets a pretty good jump over Partridge. Couple drivers behind him fanning out. And I love this. We could see in his mirrors with that angle there and seeing everybody behind him try to find a position. We swing into turn 1 with at least one driver trying the high side.
Yeah, it's 3rd and 4th arguing that position right there. Now we jump into the tunnel turn. Looks like they're still side by side, but now it's for 4th and 5th. So that's Ryan Steele on the low side, starting to slip back a couple positions. Now he settles back into the 5th place, but move Jesper Eriksson up into 4th.
Those it seems pretty comfortable up on the higher lines here. Just running quite a few lanes up off of the apex. You can set your car up for that. Looks like we're going to get off of turn 3 successfully this time. Everybody in the background able to swing off of that corner without brushing up against the wall. Your leader, still Wayne Hutchison, and pulling himself a good gap, which might be critical later on, considering how powerful that toe is.
I saw 226 miles an hour going down into turn 1, 224 going into the tunnel turn right here. I think it's amazing the grip that these cars have, that they can afford to go side by side pretty much on every corner of this racetrack. So props to Pocono for creating raceability in multiple lanes out here.
Ooh, somebody getting close to the outside wall, actually brushing it there that we could see a little puff of smoke. But they'll get away with it. Garen Batten going to move down to the inside as we check behind them with Lynn Kinchlow now. And he'll go underneath the likes of Sigley, who falls backwards. We've got Oscar Fredrickson in front of them, also battling for position. Definitely a little bit more busy here in the mid-pack.
Hockenschut down to the inside there. Looks like Oscar Fredrickson. Oh, and there goes Hockenschut down. He's heavy contact into the left side wall. This was coming out of turn number 2. The tunnel turn went up the racetrack on exit, made contact with one of those cars, and it pretty much just shot him down to the inside wall.
Just trying to make out who that was. I think it was Lynn Kinchlow who had a little bit of contact with him. But it was a major, major hit to that inside wall. Assuredly, he's going to have to take a spare car if he hopes to get back out onto the track. So we're going to see a number of drivers, if it keeps going at this rate, who lack that safety net, and we keep getting these cautions.
I think that Haken is trying to get the car down to pit lane. I think he hit the tow button because it just wouldn't drive for him, so he's going to have to use that fast repair as we'll get a GSRC replay queued up out here. We've got a couple big movers. I've mentioned Jesper Eriksson a couple times, specifically because he is near the top of that points standings when we talk about the championship. And then his teammate, Oscar Fredriksson, is moving forward as well, just not as quite a rapid of a pace as his teammate. He's made his way up into 8th.
That's good news for them. Like I said, that points fight earns importance here late in the season. Here's the replay with Schutz. And coming off the turn, yeah, he gets a big nudge from Lynn. And there was just no saving it at those speeds, especially with the car loaded up on the exit of the corner.
It's exactly what happened. It was just simply front left wing to right rear wheel coming up out of corner exit. And I think that Kinchlow was probably expecting Haken to leave the top lane because he was following Fredriksson through. But there was a gap between Fredriksson and Kinchlow, and so I think that Haken thought he could slide up into the racing line, and probably just tripping over each other were both of the drivers.
Kinch has brought the car into pit lane. I'm checking the front wing, and I don't see any damage.
Really? So now I know iRacing's a little bit funky with their damage model and the net code sometimes that can happen. I saw the front left wing element fall off during the incident, but that doesn't mean it officially fell off.
Yeah, the server may have updated itself later. I watched during the pit stop. The wing did not seem to kind of pop or move, so repairs were not done on it. And he did take tires, though, as he went up on the jacks. So it seems like maybe a bit of a strategy call on his part. Maybe also he wasn't sure if he had damage on the wing and kind of came in just to cover off that eventuality.
That's a great point. These drivers don't necessarily have, call it a real spotter to be able to click around to the different cameras to look at the car, right? They've got their virtual spotter yelling at them, telling them exactly what's going on. But sometimes it's actually nice to have a pair of eyeballs and say, hey, you actually have damage on the front left wing. When you're the driver, you can't see that wing. It's not like you can change the view and be like, all right, let's look at the car from the outside. It's a great point, Joe, that he knew he made contact. You might as well come get it fixed if you think you made damage.
So that's going to put him down in 19th after that pit stop. Will definitely cause him a little bit more of craziness there in the middle of the field, as he's going to have to try and fight his way back up to the front. Top 16 I'm seeing have yet to be down pit lane, but from 17th on down, everybody has been in the pits, and we're only on lap 10 of this race. So it's been a busier pit lane, I think, than we expected, as we got one more coming in. Tom Dreiling, a number of drivers coming in. Looks like Craig Hawkins, Ernie Ludwig as well, all doing more of the splash and dash here during the caution, doing what they can. Because the other thing, Joe, is we don't know how many more of these yellows we're going to get at the start. So this could be a very good call on their part to continue to do this until it goes green, because it completely puts them opposite to their rivals.
Might as well, right? I mean, if you're back there, you might as well do something different than what's going on at the front. It just plays a different Uno card on the table, and you don't know if it's going to be a draw for or what you're going to get out of it. But I can say the front guys, it's not like they're burning a whole lot of fuel. And correct me if I'm wrong, I do not see a tire set limit out here. So if there's a yellow flag and these guys and gals are going out there and burning up their tires on 1 or 2 green flag laps, new tires can also help out if you're at the back of the field.
Yeah, you are correct. There is no tire limit in this race today, which is an interesting call because, again, that does kind of allow some freedom. I feel like that really changes the complexion, because if they did have a tire limit, there would be a bit of a strategic one. But in this one, like you said, it also brings a different strategy to it where, oh, well, now I've got the opportunity. I could just take it and play it differently while the others try not to lose that track position. But we're getting ready to go once again as the pace car peels off and Hutchison can try and pull away once again. He goes pretty much immediately. Green flag is out, and he gets a huge jump over Ray Partridge. What's going to happen in behind him? Because Garen Batten is definitely close to that number 8.
Seems like maybe Gary Thomas is making a move on Daniel Blomqvist as the top 3, really call it the top 4, are now single file. You see Ericsson go around the top side of Garen Batten there, and I think that Garen Batten's actually just kind of slow towards turn number 2. He's going to get taken advantage potentially even more from other cars in the draft if he doesn't get up to the pace. And now Ray Partridge, he wants some clean air up front. Oh, huge wreck in the back, Joe.
Oh, a lot of cars involved in this one. Deloach looks like he's a part of it. Holblum looks like Gary Thomas as well. I saw a 4th car, couldn't quite make out who it was. Might be Dreiling. Jason Wallet. He's usually very good at the ovals, but he has been taken out early. Cedric is got a bit of a broken nose.
Definitely going to have to come down. Same thing with the front left. He's obviously got front left suspension damage. That wheel just probably hanging on by the tether itself, not any of those suspension arms. But this was definitely the big one, Joe. I think it might have been started by the 235 just getting up a little bit in the tunnel turn, getting into the wall, and then everybody kind of collecting after that. But there is also a car that wrecked in front of the 235 on his own. So there is almost 2 separate incidents there in turn number 2.
Interesting. Yeah, Holboom, I think, is the one you're talking about with a completely separate incident. Yes. and almost opposite it, because he got too low, and I think he got the apron a little bit. We'll see if we get a replay a little bit later on that one to really try and break that one down, because there's a lot of moving parts to try and assess on this one. And you can see he's still trying to drive the car around until those pits open. So here's Deloach's incident. Like you said, just way too high. And there's been a number of drivers trying to run that high line, and unfortunately couldn't steer it. And it feels like unless you've got the car for it, it's not a smart idea.
The downforce, the grip, plus I keep calling it the tunnel turn. And if you are unfamiliar with Pocono, how the big rigs get into the track is through the tunnel underneath the racetrack in turn number 2. Not a big deal, right? Except it creates a bump on top of the racetrack, specifically pretty much right in the middle of the corner. We saw one of those cars get down onto the apron. I think we're going to get a replay of that car right here. Actually, this is Deloach and Gary Thomas once again just kind of coming across and making a contact with the wreck. But if you get too low, you can hit the apron, upset the platform of the car, and go spinning. If you don't have the proper suspension and shock setup, you can go bouncing over that bump and just simply never be able to recover and ride pretty much right into that outside wall. I would call it the trickiest turn on the tricky triangle.
I agree. You would think with it being a 90-degree corner, and it's just a mimic of Indianapolis, so everyone here is likely familiar with it, and yet it seems to catch out so many drivers. And you know what that really illustrated for me, that last replay, Joey, was, do you see how quickly it unfolded? There was no way that he could have avoided that.
220 mile an hour plus into turns 1 and 2. And yeah, you do bleed off a little bit of speed going through the corner, but really not a whole lot. Watch the number 10 car right here, this white, blue, and yellow car. He's going to hit the apron. Oh, just right there. That's what upsets the car. He goes spinning, and then unfortunately Deloach goes slamming into him after Deloach had broken the suspension himself. But what do I count here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 different cars involved in that one.
They are dropping like flies here, and we've already lost Homan, Scrivener, and Watley. Looks like everybody else has popped their cars back out on track. Almost all of them have taken their spare car. I only see Mark Redeker amongst the group at the bottom that hasn't taken theirs. No, I take that back. Looks like Ernie Ludwig still hasn't used his spare car, but he's also 2 laps down from the next car ahead of him, or at least from the leader, excuse me. So he's got a bit of work to do to get back into it. And again, this isn't NASCAR rules. There is no lucky dog. So for him to get that lap back is going to be difficult.
And because it's not NASCAR rules, typically IndyCar doesn't do this, but every league is different. I do not see any GWC attempts at the end of this one either. So if we have a yellow-filled race and it comes down to a situation like this towards the end, you actually want to be up front leading this thing in clean air.
Indeed, and you're right. They run this to as close to the real world rules as they can for the series they're imitating. So there is no green-white checkers to wrap this one up. Unfortunately, while the real world, they've kind of taken to red flags if they find it's going to take them a bit. They want to get that green flag finish. They don't have that nicety here. The race is not going to be stopped. So we sort of have a cutoff point if we get to the end where if it's 4 or 5 laps to go and a yellow comes out, that's it. Race is over.
I got to chuckle to myself over here about what you're talking about, because it almost seems now that IndyCar has a timer down. It's like, can we throw a red flag? Can we throw a red flag to get it back going? And they do whatever they can to try to get that race back going again. It is a little bit amusing.
Looks like we've got our first penalty from a new feature here in the majors. They have live race control now. They're kind of testing the waters of this for next year, and they're giving an EOL for the 10 car for causing the incident. That is Holbom, and that was the one at the front that tripped the apron.
Yep, we're getting green flag again, so we'll analyze that a little bit later. But Wayne Hutchinson stands on the gas. A very, very single file restart through here. You see the top 15 all in line.
Jesper Ericsson's got a good run on Ray Partridge. I get the feeling he wants to try and get himself to the point here because he's been steadily but surely picking him off on each restart. We haven't had a lot of green flag racing, but he's been going for it. He shows himself coming down the back straightaway, the long pond straight, but isn't able to get by Ray Partridge through Indianapolis.
And it has been the top 10 cars that have not come down pit road at all. All of the rest of them have made it down pit road that last time. And you see, once again, Garen Batten side by side with Ryan Steele right now for 4th place as they go down this ultra wide front straightaway.
They actually have landed planes on that front straightaway before. It's that long and that wide. And we got a little bit of a move around the outside from Ryan Steele, and a beautiful job getting the shot off the corner. Batten can't do much to defend it, and that's going to give 4th place to the 16 car.
I think what I've noticed out of this driver of the black and green number 61, Garen Batten, is he's patient out there. He's shown it before in previous races. He just kind of lets the race come to him, while this driver, Jesper Eriksson, has all been hammered down as aggressive as possible. He started back there in the 10th place position, and he's looking for the lead.
See one of his teammates kind of popping out there farther back. That's actually Oscar Fredrickson and Daniel Holmer, further teammates working together here down in the field for SimRace Sweden Esports Pro. I can only imagine that they want to try and take home that team's championship. They've worked so hard. They brought a lot of talent into this series, and they come into the penultimate round with a pretty monstrous lead. So it could be feasible they could walk away with the title today.
Always got to get through the next 182 laps first before we count those championship points. But you are right, they have got a very good foothold on the championship. And not only that, but some of the strongest drivers we've seen in the majors week in and week out. It's pretty amazing what the SimRace Sweden Esports Pro team has been able to do. And it doesn't matter what track, what car combination, you can always count on their drivers to be towards the front.
Still top 3 are now starting to break away. Hutchinson leads, Partridge leads Eriksson as they come into turn 3. And we've got a gap of about 9/10 of a second down to Ryan Steele there in 4th, which is pretty big in terms of an oval like this. Wayne Hutchinson, as we watch from on board, sees his 2 rivals in behind, but they haven't tried to pass him yet.
And they've actually broken the slipstream back there to that car of Ryan Steele in 4th place. Look at Eriksson just all over the back of Partridge here. See, he decides to lift actually going through the tunnel turn, so he's not going to make a move here. Maybe try to set something up down the front straightaway. I was actually very curious to see them break the draft so quickly. I wonder if that's why Ericsson was in such a hurry to get up to the front.
I was trying to check the stats on Wayne Hutchison here, because I was trying to recall if he actually has had a win here in the majors. This is a phenomenal effort from him at this point, although it's still early stages, as you pointed out, where there's a lot of racing left to go. But he's been fast in qualifying. It looks like not many have something for him in these opening laps, so he could be a player come the checkered flag.
And if we get a green flag run, we're going to be talking about the fuel strategy game. Is it better to be up front leading this race, or is it better to be in that second place position that Ray Partridge or Ericsson back there in third, because you can actually let the car in front pull you down the straightaway, lift off of that throttle just a little bit, not 100% off of the throttle, but maybe crack it 5%, 15%, whatever it takes to still pull in on the draft, but actually save fuel while you're closing.
Watch now Aiden Campbell here, a little farther down in ninth position. Got a little group forming, being led by Daniel Holmer. Lynn Kinchlow has actually made up a couple spots since the restart and is using those slightly fresher tires to pick them off bit by bit. Is now up to eighth place, it looks like.
You're right. He is the furthest forward on the freshest set of tires. He has been able to pass a few of these cars, and it's right behind one of those SimRace Sweden esports drivers of Daniel Homer. I was noticing in the draft, 225 miles an hour. Let's see what Kinchlow gets up to. 226, 227, 228 before almost clipping the attenuator of the car right in front of him going off into turn number one.
Whew. Certainly getting some high speeds here. Just really incredible what this track produces. We're watching Partridge trying to keep up with Wayne Hutchison. By the way, I did check, and Wayne has actually been here since the beginning, back when it was called the Northwest Majors back in 2014. That's how long he's been around. But no wins in all of the seasons. This is a guy that has got to be hungry for one finally.
I think the leaders are playing fuel games. I know I'm obsessed with fuel. I have trigger words over here: tires, fuel, strategy, right? But I really do feel like they are playing games up here. Our leader only 216, 215 into turn number two. I even think that Hutchinson is lifting off of the throttle.
I think you're right. I think they're thinking long term, especially now that we're finally getting some green flag laps here. And nobody seems interested in passing up at the front, especially since they've broken away from Ryan Steele. They know that, there's nobody that's going to come and make this a huge battle. Well, unless you're Jesper Eriksson, who thinks about moving down into turn one, then gets back in line. Kind of looks like, he's been picking them off bit by bit. He'll get another one. And there you go. I was going to say, I think he wants the track position, even if he does also want to save fuel.
I think he's forcing their hand. I like seeing this right now. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the better strategy or one is better than the other, but what Ericsson is doing is going up there and saying, you know what, I don't like how you're eating off of the table over here. I'm going to share all this food with my buddies, a.k.a. take it for myself on my plate and go out there and control the race myself. And as I say that, we've got another yellow flag. Looks like Gary Thomas has more problems out there in the number 19 car. Looks like multiple cars out there at turn number two again.
Yeah, had a little bit of help on this one. McCrelly looks to be involved, and thankfully not as big of a wreck as we saw before, as only one car gets turned around, and he's able to bring it back to the track pretty quickly. So this should be a relatively easy stop. Now we're 26 laps in, but we've had a lot of yellow flag laps, so these leaders who are saving fuel, do they come in and pit finally, or do they stay out a little bit longer and risk maybe being caught having to pit under a green?
I think you stay out. Typically on 2.5 mile racetracks, we see what about 40 laps or so in terms of a green flag run. I know we're on lap 26, but the majority have been yellow. I would say they're probably approaching halfway on their fuel tank right now. I would just stay out.
So let's see who agrees, because they're coming around to that pit entry pretty soon. And they don't have to take that little pit lane run down there at the bottom. They can wait until after the corner to come in. So you'll see drivers probably play some games here if they do want to pit, maybe feigning whether or not they stay in or out. And they want to go in and get fuel. Now, Lynn Kinchlow, who we know pitted recently, is going to stay out and get the track position.
Now, when I call strategy, I always call strategy based off of the trends in the race. If you are just looking at the data itself, the numbers on the paper, it's probably a smart decision to come down here because you're call it approaching a quarter of the way through the race. So fill it up with fuel, get back out there, get a new set of tires. However, the trends are yellow flags. We've had 4 yellow flags here in the first 25 laps. This is the replay of exactly what happened. Watch the white car on the bottom. It's going to slide up the racetrack into Gary Thomas right there, makes contact, and Gary Thomas goes spinning around. Like you heard Joe say, really just a single car incident and doesn't really look like a whole lot of damage. But the trend is yellow flags. 4 yellow flags in the first 25 laps. Tells me there's going to be more.
That was a great save from Gary. I didn't notice that before, that he just does a full 360, keeps it off the wall, and just picks it up like nothing happened at all. So excellent stuff. So we check out Brian Barnes and his Dog Bear machine. Where has he come out? 19th position, so he's a bit of a ways down. But we've now officially had at least everybody down pit lane one time. Some have come down multiple times. Including Ryan Walker, who is now up to 3rd. He's been down twice, but again, because he pitted a little bit earlier on, about 13 laps ago, he's in a much better position than those around him to try and carry on should we get another long green flag run. So we come around, I think, to get the one to go signal here pretty soon. Let's see. Yeah, lights are still on. We got one more car peeling in. Who is that? That is Josh Hampton. Okay. Interesting. And another driver in behind him also pitting. I think that is Ernie Ludwig, who's still multiple laps down. Lights are out on the pace car. So we're going to be going back green flag racing. And we've got another EOL from our stewards. The 614 is given one. That is McCrelly, who was on the inside. So EOL on the restart for causing the wreck, the latest caution. It looks like he's already served that and is at the back of the line. So we've got Kinchlow leading, Walker second, and then everybody else who has pitted, Joey, siphoning in behind.
Yeah, but did you see what happened in those pit stops there? Wayne Hutchinson was our leader when they started him. Jesper Eriksson actually came out in front of Hutchinson. He only had a 7.9 second stop, while Hutchinson, our previous leader, had an 8.3 second stop. So a change of guard up front, per se, even though that Lynn and Ryan are technically in front of those 2 runners right now.
So interestingly, Lynn is really backing off of the pace car. He's letting him get a long ways away, and he's allowed to do that, but I'm not sure what he plans to do with this other than maybe get a better launch off the corner, since usually they throw the green pretty quickly after that pace car peels in. Let's hope that this doesn't catch him out. Yeah, you can't even see the pace car in this shot, at least yet, so we might be able to as it starts to head around. There, that's how far back he's holding it, and he's starting to approach him, slowly picking up the speed. Is he trying to time this, maybe? There goes the pace car. And there it is. Green flag is out. He didn't quite time it, I think, as he had to slow down slightly. Thankfully, we did not have a stack up, but it's a pretty decent start out of Lynn as everybody winds up these engines.
Watching those new tires back there in 3rd and 4th, and Kinchlow does able to escape down the road a little bit, but now kind of the accordions are starting. You see him starting to pop out of the road there, going for the inside into the tunnel turn. And looks like Ericsson, Fredrickson, everybody is starting to leave a little bit of room more. Maybe be a little bit more patient out there as well.
I'll tell you what, he's probably not made friends with the lapped cars, because I see behind Kinch and Walker, we got a yellow.
And we got more problems because they're wrecking behind, trying to avoid. I'm trying to spot that car. Is that Mike Golightly? That's the orange car that stopped on the front straightaway. But I believe, oh no, was this Gary Thomas again? And I think I saw the 10 involved in this one, which was Holbom, who's already got a penalty himself. Ah, man.
Yeah, Golightly was trying to check up, and he gets hit from behind. That caused this one, and that was with Holboom also involved. So a number of drivers who already have been in the pits to try and take that spare car. Holboom definitely, so he's going to have trouble trying to get this repaired and get back out. Now, he is allowed to, but he's going to be likely either off the pace or just generally many laps down. And we're going to start losing more and more at this rate, unfortunately. And you called the trend right, Joey. You said you feel like those cautions are not done, and we've gone back yellow very quickly.
Yeah, and I'm conflicted right now. I see a lot of the same numbers calling the same yellows out there, and you would think that maybe they would kind of ease up a little bit. We're going to take a look at the GSRC replay right here, see exactly what kicked this off. There was a couple of different incidents going on. So Gary Thomas gets passed through turn 3 right here, and he just makes a very bad judgment trying to get back in line. There's the car. And he just drifts right up into the left rear of the 37 of Ericsson, crashes himself down the front straightaway. Then there's a whole separate incident with the 10 car getting into the back of that orange and black car. And it was kind of a similar incident where the 10 just thought he had room and he just ran straight into the back of him.
A lot of drivers were slowing down, so that was slightly different on that one. The point I was trying to make before was those drivers that had stayed out, the two, Walker and Kinch, they had trapped a bunch of lapped cars who were hoping to get that lap back that time. I think they may have actually gotten that lap this time. Let me check here to see where that pace car is. Yeah, like Hockenschutz, he's going to get his lap back. I think Jason Wallet, nope, he's on the, oh yeah, he's going to get a lap back. Looks like Robert Deloach as well. So there's this actually worked out well in those drivers' favors, but those involved in the wreck probably aren't as grateful.
The further forward you are, the less chance of carnage you're going to be involved in, unless you cause it yourself, right? That's the only way that you can kind of be involved in somebody's mess, is if you cause it yourself. So we're going to see if we can kind of get reset over here. It seems like we are on caution number 5, working lap number 31, but we should be getting back to green flag racing here relatively soon. Ericsson is leading the way. Got a couple lapped cars directly in front of him, it seems, between himself and the pace car.
Now, we should see those cars waved around pretty soon. Unfortunately, this is a very long lap, so they have to hustle to get back to the tail end of the field, but they'll be waved around once those lights go out. Up at the front, it will be Ericsson who will now lead this race. What kind of difference is that going to make? Because he'll restart ahead of Wayne Hutchison. And if I'm honest, I feel like Jesper's been one of the faster cars here early on in this race, Joey.
Yeah, and he's also been one of the most aggressive cars because he's been able to make the passes to get up towards the front. We see more cars come down and get whatever damage they have fixed up. I think this is kind of the first time since our initial green flag run that I would call everybody on the same strategy. I know we didn't have everybody come down this yellow flag, but they're only working 5 laps on their fuel stint, on their set of tires. I would pretty much call it even.
All right, so Rob Courtney on his way back out. Seen a lot of pit stops for this early in the race. Michael Hogg has been down pit lane 9 times and is racking them up, but he's still 21st and he's still on the lead lap. That's the important thing. This definitely freed up a number of cars as we're only 4 that are now a lap down or more. Go Lightly, Holboom, Ernie Ludwig, and Gary Thomas. Although Holboom is probably going to go many, many laps down because he's taking those repairs, and Gary Thomas has been in pit lane now for about 2 or 3 laps, about 4 minutes that he's been sitting and waiting for that to happen. Lights are out on the pace car. We're going to get ready to go this next time by.
I want to give a big-time shout-out to the number 22, Craig Hawkins. He's been doing a fantastic job out there. He's actually one of the biggest movers so far. Started way back there in 32nd. Hasn't been caught up in anything. He's gone up 10 positions.
And I'm pretty sure Craig's paint scheme is kind of an homage to the late 90s Menards paint schemes that we saw in the IRL. Those bright fluorescent ones that were very difficult to miss. Pace car is in, and it's going to be Jesper in charge. He waited a long time for this one, and that actually worked out very well for him. He has, whoa, we got a big wreck, though. Oh, my goodness. Everybody checks up to try and oh, no, we've got more. Yeah, that may have been Brian Barnes. Oh, that was messy.
Lots and lots of cars. You had pointed it out earlier in the broadcast. This happens in real life, right? The IndyCar has had problems on restarts. I think that Ericsson did a great job. He waited until the green flag to be thrown. He didn't try to time it. He didn't try to jump it or anything. But everybody in the back half of the field did.
Yeah, I'm noticing that now as I'm going back to watch and see what caused this. I think Holmer was the first to get hit, but he was hit from behind. I mean, I don't know how you put blame on this one. So good luck to the live control who are going to have to try and tear this all apart. Try to figure out who that was. It was, I think, Nick Redeker.
The 12 car ramrodded Holmer for sure. And then just chaos ensued. So this, I believe, is the first checkup watching Aiden Campbell back here. And you see the gaps, right? The top 5 are all together, but then you see these huge, massive gaps, and everybody tries to time the run, and it's just a huge accordion effect, and everybody in the back half of the field pretty much gets wiped out.
Man, it was Redeker that we saw get into that incident late. He was trying to slow the car, and then someone spun directly in front of him and just could not avoid. So, yeah, looks like we've now officially lost Cedric Holboom. He's hopped out of the car. Wonder if George Lesko is now done since he's had to tow to pit lane. Everybody else is still out on track, which makes up 26 cars circulating at this stage out of 32 starters. We're on lap 34. It has been attrition-filled here at the start.
Take another look at some of these replays here. Here's Tom Dreiling's view, and I'm going to agree with our producer. I definitely think it started a couple rows in front, and the person who started it really just kind of got to escape scot-free out there. So the number 30 car, not so much. The number 12 car, not so much. You see them going for a big, giant ride, and in a go-kart, that is a bumpy landing.
It really is. That was quite the bunny hop. And did anybody else get it? No, it looks like he got away with it afterwards, as nobody ran into the back of him.
Totally got away with it.
Yeah, okay, fair point. Tom has since, well, he drove it back into pit lane for what it's worth.
There you go.
I mean, it's what's the pilot say? Any landing you could walk away from?
Yes, any landing you can walk away from is a good landing. And you're right. Technically, the Indy car still had 4 wheels on it. And with the tire budgets that are out there today, just start going over to Firestone and rack them up.
So he had his fast repairs, so the 30 is going to be able to get back out there. And looks like Michael Hogg took some repairs himself. That may have been a standard stop for him before he returns to the track. No, that was some repairs, so the 744 had to do a bit. So Ericsson had full right to wait on that one. We'll see if he does it again. Again, like I said initially before we had the accident, Joey, it worked out great for him because he got a huge jump on the fields. It just didn't work out great for everybody behind.
Everybody has to play by the rules. That's how restarts work. And when you don't have everybody playing by the rules, you have these massive accordion stack-ups. And you say, well, I waited until the green flag came out. And okay, that's great in theory. But what's actually happening on the racetrack in front of you? If you are trying to time the green flag run, you are the problem, right? You need to be up there behind the car in front of you. And if you are trying to leave a gap or try to time the restart so you have the jump, you need to actually be looking at yourself in a lot of those situations.
I completely agree. It's a long race, and trying to pull some gamesmanship like that at this stage, I think, is just asking for a bit of trouble, as we've seen out on the track. And we have to remember, because we pointed it out, that there's not everybody here is used to running on ovals, and so there's all these nuances and things that maybe there's people that aren't as used to it. So talk to us a bit, Joey. What, as a road racer coming into this side of it, what kind of things do they need to watch out for?
Patience. I think it's so easy to throw everything out the window when it comes down to sim racing, because there's really no consequence, right? You get the reset button. So I think just when you strap in the sim, you need to be more patient, especially if you aren't familiar with that specific type of racing. Like you're mentioning, right? If you're not constantly on ovals, you should not be the one that's going crazy aggressive. You should be patient and letting everything unfold and not causing the problems.
All right, we'll see if we get any more problems. We're going to restart on lap 37 out of 200. We got a ways to go. Let's hope we keep some cars running by the checkered flag as the pace car is in, and Ericsson is on the throttle. He waited a while again on this one, but this looks a little smoother so far. Ryan Steele with a good run, seeing what he could do with that. Top two, got a big jump on the field, though.
Yeah, look at it, really all compressed right there for what is third, fourth, fifth, and now side by side, Fredrickson going around Ryan Steele around the outside of turn number one. Let's see if we can make it a whole lap this time.
We did have a good green flag run at one point in there, and we got things underway, so crossing fingers as, wow, some cars going very high, including Lynn Kinchlow. Oh, we got a wreck in the back.
And there's the yellow flag. I think I see Daniel Homer involved in this one, the 987. Remember, he kind of got ran over the back of on that restart yellow that we just had. And so I'm going to kind of knock on some wood over here, see if we can get some more green flag laps. I see Ryan Walker has been able to keep his car nice and clean. So props to that number 3 driver. I know that he didn't have a whole lot of practice here this weekend. Not as much practice as he would have hoped, but he is one of the drivers that is doing a very good job.
I wonder if we could get a view of some of these cars that managed to escape on this one, because Holmer spun across the track, and yet he was the only car involved. We'll get just a first look at Holmer and what caused it here. So watch here at the end of the Long Pond Straight. He's already looking a little low. I wonder if the car maybe was a bit offline here, and that's what caused him to spin. He was attempting to pass. He does get by. Wow, that rear broke fast.
I think it was a combination of an opening restart, so tires aren't up to pressures. Tires are not up to temperatures. You might actually be even a little bit faster than usual going into the corner because you've got the draft. And low, we've seen it, is not where you want to be in the tunnel turn. Now, he didn't go over the apron and upset the car, but usually in the tunnel turn, it's kind of half a car width off of that very, very bottom groove, especially in the open wheelers where they're so dang close to the ground.
Yeah, there is nothing in there. See Ryan Walker. Where is he now? He's up to 9th. So he dropped back after his last pit stop. It looks like he's made up for it quite quickly, and is much farther towards the front, which is definitely where you want to be from what we've witnessed so far from these cautions. That so many of them have been mid-pack or towards the back of the field. Thankfully, very few have been up at the front, so we haven't collected a whole lot of cars. So here's Ernie Ludwig. Watch him try and get by. This is on board with UDOC's Daisy driver. Sees the pass in front of him, sees the car start to spin, and nice quick reactions to keep him out of the wreck.
Nicely avoided there from Ernie. And he's seen his fair share of stuff too, been able to avoid a lot of stuff out there. So I guess that's also part of racing, is not only being able to go out there, get that perfect car set up so that way you've got the perfect car to go out there and perform in the race, but it's also the racecraft, right? You need to be able to avoid incidents, whether they're your fault or not, whether they're down on the apron, up towards the wall. You got to be able to keep your head on a swivel.
Looks like Holmer is now given the EOL penalty for causing that incident. And he is still out there on track right now. Has he used his spare car? No, he has. No, he has. Yes, he's used it up. So nothing left for him to try and keep out of trouble from here. So Holmer's going to be sent to the back, while Jesper Eriksson here on screen will continue to lead ahead of Wayne Hutchison. Unfortunately for Wayne, he's got the other Scandinavian driver behind him from that ubiquitous team, Oscar Fredriksson. So, and those are two of the faster drivers on that team, honestly. So this is going to be tricky for him now that he is kind of sandwiched.
See, the 987 of Daniel Homer was able to either get a fast repair or get some stuff fixed up on that car. He is back out there on the racetrack as well. And a bunch of cars coming down pit lane, it seems. Maybe the back half of the field coming down, taking this opportunity. And Joe, I wonder if the Inside the Majors podcast guys are going to be talking about the yellow flags and everything going on over here at Pocono. I know that you can listen to them on, YouTube, Substack, Apple Podcasts, Spotify out there.
Yep, that's Inside the Majors, so make sure and check that out. You can get all kinds of cool information. There is so much that goes on behind the scenes in this series because it is a massive series with both an Atlantic and a Pacific region. And of course, while this is a slightly less attended event, usually they have so many drivers that each race in those two regions has multiple splits. In fact, I think they had two splits even over in the Pacific last night. So there's a lot that has to be organized and a lot they deal with. And they are constantly asking for input from the drivers on this series. With this having so many different disciplines, they have to ask for input to make sure that they get things right and accurate.
Not only that, but I mean, that's another point of having one of those podcasts, right? Is that you get to put the information out there. You get more feedback from not only the drivers, but listeners who like to watch sim racing. So yeah, definitely go check them out. Inside the Majors.
All right, we're going to get started once again. You can see them hanging up high, and you'd think you wouldn't want to do that because that's where the marbles are going to be. We don't really have them quite yet, though, so it's pretty clean up there. But this is because you can only pass on the outside on these restarts before the start-finish line. So that's why you see them hovering up there, and the green flag is out. Eriksson gets a good jump. Already, he's trying to break the slipstream now. He's trying to play some games to see if he can get away from Hutchison and Fredriksson, but he'll hover back up to the outside before he dives into one.
Relatively calm, I see, for the front three, and now Fredriksson with a big-time run on Hutchinson down the short chute straightaway towards turn number 2. We've seen the inside of the tunnel turn be very treacherous, but it looks like Fredriksson is able to clear and is up to second place.
The Swedish team is now 1-2 out there, so they control the race. We got a battle for fourth with Ryan Steele trying to go to the inside. He drifts up high and loses a ton of speed, but mercifully he does not reckon to his competitor.
And it's tough because he lost all of that momentum going out onto the front straightaway, so he pretty much just has to wave goodbye to everybody in front of him. Hopefully catch the draft at the exit of turn number 2. Look at how busy it is here in the back half of the field. Looks like Paulison making a move down to the inside here in the number 58 car.
Paulison rocking the classic players colors on his Indy car. That'll put him up into 14th with that move. Behind him looks like an attempt from Robert DeLoach to get by on Josh Hampton for position, but Hampton has the speed off the corner.
Almost 3 wide going into turn number 3. Further back in the pack here, we're watching Robert DeLoach. Also, I see Tom Dreiling and Daniel Homer all involved in this battle, and some of these, call it closing rates on the front straightaway are getting pretty impressive.
Garen Batten now to the underside of Hutchison. Wayne is dropping off. Now that those two Swedish cars are up at the front, they are dashing away from everybody. This is not good news for the rest of the field. They are showing the speed that we caught glimpses of when they were stuck in the mid-pack.
It's almost a little identical to what we saw at Brands Hatch in the majors events, where we saw Ericsson and Fredrickson in the rain in those FF 1600 cars just absolutely run away from everybody. Almost deja vu at an oval.
Meanwhile, Nick Sigley there in 8th place is close to under attack from Walker. Walker decides not to make the move. Instead, Nick looks low. Nothing doing into there. Lynn Kinchlow pulls away from him as they both drift up off the corner.
Like you said, Walker's right here behind. Now you get the shot of him right underneath, pretty much coming underneath that rear wing, underneath the rear spoiler. Try to get some of that air to the outside of the car on corner entry. Capitalize on corner exit. I think it's going to be coming out of turn number 3 here. And once again, Walker just goes way high to the racetrack. Focus on the corner exit. Look at the drive that he gets.
Trying to get that clear air on the front wing so that he can keep the grip through the corner. There you go, down to the inside, but all his speed from the slipstream goes away as soon as he hits that brick wall. But now that they're into the corner, he's got the shorter line. Question is that going to give him the speed down the backstretch? No, it will not.
Turn 1, I think, is the only turn that you can really get away with running the low line and executing a decent pass. Even then, we see a lot of cars overshoot the entry and end up sliding way up on corner exit. But in terms of passing, I think the majority are going to set it up out of turn 3 and pass into turn 1.
You see Walker with his webcam, just chatting a little bit with his team behind the scenes. Don't let Drew Adamson see his webcam, though, because the bet isn't made.
Yeah, okay. I didn't know that was a thing with Drew, but I'll make sure that I've always got the green screen up, so I've never had that issue over there on that channel.
It's either Drew or Cisco. We had conflicting reports at the Petit Le Mans, because I thought it was Drew that had issues, but then there was about 3 or 4 people that complained. So I think it's just a requirement if you work at iRacing, you have to have a made bet.
You got to look professional. If you're going to go be on the big channel, you definitely got to be professional. Hockenschut right here is kind of hanging on to the back end of things. He's here in this 808 car in 12th place, and I would call it maybe the top 12 are separated relatively evenly. Then you've got about a 1.5 second gap from Hocken back to Paulison in 13th place.
Pirelli's been in the wars today and is still out there on the lead lap in 17th as he gets underneath Tom Dreiling, but is unable to do anything with it. Now Daniel Holmer, our driver punished from the last yellow, still sitting back here in 18th, also on the lead lap, so not doing too shabby, considering I think we've seen him in, 2 or 3 yellows now at this point?
I mean, we've had 6 so far, and we're approaching this 1/4 mark, so I'm knocking on wood over here, Joe. I've got all my fingers and toes crossed. This is looking like a great green flag run, and Macrelli now using that slipstream, but as we saw earlier, if you stay in the racing line, you often have somebody else to pull you alongside. Macrelli's going to stay to the inside here, past Tom Dreiling, pick up that 16th.
It is fascinating. I would have thought that drivers would want a little less downforce at a track this fast, but it seems a lot of people have a lot of wing cranked into it. I guess with it being a 200-mile race, they're trying to just get a nice stable car out there as we watch Lynn Kinchlow once again battling, this time with Ryan Steele. Steele will come out ahead and get that 6th spot.
Ryan's been a little bit up and down, and now you see Kinchlow go back down to the inside, so he's going to get the run. Ooh, Ryan put his foot in it right in the middle of turn number 1 and is able to get that drive off. I was talking about down low in turn number 1. You can execute that pass, but you really have to throw it down in there and carry the momentum all the way up into that corner exit. Riding on board with Kinchlow again. I mentioned it. It's just such a cool view. We're not getting to see the radar actually work because the car's in front of him, but maybe if he uses the draft here, we'll see that thing pop up on the screen with the arrows.
The other thing I love is look at there we go. Now he's got the information showing up and kind of shows you where you are alongside in relation, and he gets through this time. That's going to be P6, at least temporarily for Kinchlow. Can't keep the speed up off of turn 1, and that's going to allow Steele back by. But I was going to say, I love on his little heads-up display there at the bottom there, he's also got the tire temperatures and everything, so he's paying attention to the nitty-gritty in this one.
100%. A lot of information for the driver to keep track of, but the tire temperatures are actually crucial in iRacing. The cooler you can keep those things, the more consistent they're going to be. So in terms of data to monitor, that is an important one, albeit maybe call it a little extra.
Yeah. You're definitely taking care of a lot of things if you're trying to see if you can manage that at the same time that you're battling with somebody at 215 miles an hour around this track. Behind them, Garen Batten is in a nice little fight, I think in front of them. So this is for 5th and 4th. Hutchison has the track position, and he's lost touch with the leaders, so no longer fighting for the lead, but should we get another yellow, he'll be bunched right back up to them.
There are the leaders going down the front straightaway, doing a nice job, just kind of staying in the slipstream of each other, but not really in the dirty air. It's a little bit of a tricky thing to do in iRacing, because if you get out to call it about 9/10 to 1.1 seconds, you really start to lose the effect of that slipstream. But if you get closer, you actually have to deal with the dirty air being kicked off of the car in front of you through the corner. So I think that Ericsson and Fredrickson have kind of found that sweet spot right there at 3/4 of a second.
Gamble along with Wallet and Hawken-Schutz. Each of these drivers have also been involved in yellows. In fact, I think it'd be easier to count the drivers that haven't been involved in yellows at this point. Great run off onto the main straight for Wallet. 658 is holding on to 10th right now.
See, up into 6th gear it clicked it up into, and most of the time in the Indy cars you'll be using 5th and 6th gear, sometimes 4th depending on how much difference there is in the cornering speed. Is looks like this battle between Kinchlow and Steele is still going on. It doesn't seem like one wants to lead the other. It's just the constant peloton going back and forth, which can propel you forward if you're using it efficiently, but I think these guys are more smiling, having fun racing each other.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything coordinated between them. Usually we'd see a very distinct swap back and forth on each straightaway for them to gain the speed, and it's up to 6 seconds behind the leader now. So yeah, they've lost a lot. Remember, it's only a 41 to 42 second lap time around here, so 6 seconds is massive. In fact, that might be the whole back straight.
Inch is going to look down to the inside here. I wonder, because commonly referred to him as Kinch instead of Kinchlow, I wonder if he's the mayor of Kinchtown.
If I know his sense of humor, I think he'd be down for that. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that start to pop up on the car somewhere for the next race. He gets a much better run this time. Ryan Steele actually loses a little bit of touch, but he's still going to feel the pull from that number 44. So I think the battle's not quite over yet.
I'm actually pretty surprised up at the front. I was saying that Ericsson and Fredrickson were just kind of working together and not affecting the dirty air, but I do think that Jesper Ericsson is our fastest and most aggressive driver in terms of the race setup that we're seeing. He's actually stretched out to about 1.2 seconds now over his teammate.
Out onto the short chute here between Indianapolis and Milwaukee with Steve Paulison trying to catch back up to McCrelly, but Dreiling, actually no, that's not Dreiling, that's a lapped car in behind him. That's the car of Lesko, actually, who's just kind of hanging on, holding on, hoping that we get another caution. Everybody else doesn't want one, though. We want to get some laps down on the board. We're past a quarter of the way through now at this stage on lap 54. So we are making progress. Brian Barnes, another driver that's been around in the majors since pretty much the beginning, used to be known actually for having the Popsicle sponsorship on his livery. Way back when, that was one that you could select here on iRacing, but it went away, so he hasn't put it on there in some time. But I will give him credit. He has the same yellow and blue paint that he's had pretty much all 10 of the years of this series.
You got me thinking about popsicles. As we see a move, is this Aiden Campbell here? Maybe going down the front straightaway, trying to take away, get down to the low side here, see if he can slide up. And it really seems like the top side of the racetrack is for sure where you want to be. It doesn't matter if it's 1, 2, or 3. It seems like the drive off of the corner is really a lot better than the drive going into the corner. To my popsicle point, Joe, if you had the popsicle truck, the kind of drive up in the neighborhood as a kid, which one were you going for? I was always a firecracker kid.
Oh boy. See, the
you know the
is,
red, white, and blue firecracker popsicles?
Yeah.
I was always a fan of those.
I always heard those called the Rockets, though. Pop Rockets.
Okay, yeah, same type of deal. Yep.
See, the problem was our parents were kind of, I don't want to say stingy, but there was like, well, we've got ice cream and popsicles here. We don't need to pay extra to go out to get it from the truck. So we didn't get to go do the truck as kids.
You've got the barrel juice, remember?
Yeah, the hugs. I'm trying to think of which one. Probably liked the kind of orange flavored ones. I think were some
the
of the
creamsicles.
Yeah. Those were really good.
You don't want the half-melted Sonic the Hedgehog face with the gumballs falling off?
Never really enjoyed those all that much. Although, as we get a nice little 3-wide situation here coming into the corner, and that's going to be McCrelly getting a 2-for-1. That was actually a smooth move.
Very nicely done. He passed to Aiden Campbell as well as Jason Wallet, but look at the blue car of Campbell now. It's going to look to the inside of the tunnel turn. We've seen this area be very, very dangerous down on the bottom side of the racetrack, and Campbell does a nice job to get through the corner, but it's the high side that is just able to carry the momentum. I told you, it doesn't matter if it's 1, 2, or 3. The higher you enter, the better off your exit's going to be.
So nicely done there by Christian to move himself up into 10th. Just to put a cap on our talking point, when we were little, we had a soft serve place called Gold Top. That was our go-to, and our favorite was, as we got Tom Dreiling pitting in here. So, and missing part of the wing. Was it like that before?
I was noticing that too. I wonder if Tom maybe had a little bit of an incident out there on the racetrack recently, and that's what has caused him to come into pit road. And I think it was actually just out of turn 3 right before he hit pit road.
I'm checking. No, it was a bit ago before that. It was lap 58 I'm seeing. He had some contact with, it looks like, George Lesko. So that's what cost him that. So he was definitely losing time hand over fist. Lesko has since retired the car.
But we have a green flag out on the racetrack. So despite having a little bit of an incident out there, we're going to get this GSRC replay of exactly what happened to Tom Dreiling here. He's in this white and pink themed car. The car in front loses it, and Dreiling just has a little bit of target fixation himself. Runs right into the back.
I think he was trying to anticipate what would happen. And
yep.
By the time he reacted, the car was already going the same place he was. Well, that put him backwards and also puts him 2 laps down now, excuse me, as he's got that front wing replaced and is back out on track. Hakan Schutt, who had one of his spare cars taken away early on, is back to 13th, not doing too bad. Jason Wallet, the car in front of him that he's dueling with.
See if he can get by over here. He's got a nice run going into the tunnel turn, and I love this line that he was showing, nice and high on entry there. You got to make sure the corner exit is the most important part that you're looking at here, and Wallet says, I'm going to pick up that tip. I'm going to run right in the middle of the racetrack in turn 3, and he just launches himself down that front straightaway away from the 101.
Yep. It's keeping him at arm's length. Daniel Bloomquist. Okay. So this might be a scheduled stop. 35 laps on this stint for the 988. So I think this is as far as he could go.
Possibly, right? I think that this is within the window. I want to say somewhere between 35 and 40, but here we go. Jesper Eriksson, one of our leaders, has hit pit road. So, Joe, I think you're spot on, about 35, 37 laps.
Seems to be about the limit. So coming around now, we've got Bloomquist returning out to the track. The big danger here is if we get a caution, you can get trapped a lap down. It's a big track. It's 2.5 miles. It's much like Indy in that you can stay on the lead lap. You have to be very close to the leaders to be able to pit and hold on to that.
I think the one really nice part about the Pocono pit lane, it has so much time on entry, and then the same thing on exit when you blend back into the racetrack. So we don't get these big stack-ups or maybe even losing control coming down pit lane. It is just up to the driver and picking out their brake marker and making sure they get it slowed down by the time they actually hit the cones, which is well down the road.
Kinch into his stall, looking for his marker. Oh, did he miss it slightly?
No, the board hangs out over in these open wheel cars rather than the front of the car.
It looks like he had to back up just a tiny little hair. I went back and watched it. So he missed it slightly, and under green flag conditions, that will be costly, but it was just a tiny little move. So I think he got away with it, and he's back out on track, but he may have lost a couple positions from that one. Meanwhile, Fredrickson, looks like Partridge, Batten, Hutchison, they're all in. So these are all our leaders.
I think that the mayor of Kinchtown has a good enough lawyer that he could hire and say, you know what, I did not back up in that stop. You know, I was clearly stopped exactly where I needed to be. I have no idea what everybody else is talking about. As the pit stops are going on, I'm actually pretty impressed. Ryan Steele, our leader, 39 laps so far on this fuel stint. So I know that it's a little bit convoluted. We've had so many yellow flag laps. I said 35 to 37, but that's a rough data point. I'd be curious to see actually a true green flag run.
Yeah, so Steele does come in this time. Walker stays out, 36 laps on his stint. McCrelly, though, this one's going to be fascinating. He's only on lap 28, and he sits in second. So he could go for quite some time and, again, put all those who have just pitted in severe danger for many laps. So they got to hope that he'll elect to pit in early, or else they're going to be sitting there biting their nails.
It can be a little bit convoluted trying to tell the running order and where everything it will sort itself out. Because really the front, call it 10, have yet to hit pit road. Really the front 12 have yet to hit pit road. I'm specifically looking at Eriksson and Fredrickson and their lap times. So our leaders up front, including Hawken right here, running, call it mid-42s, low 42s. Fredrickson and Eriksson, they're running high 41. So even though they're way back there in the pack, they're actually gaining time once everybody else comes down pit road, completes their cycle. They're going to be way behind these guys.
Yeah, so there's the positive side to pitting a little bit early. And Aiden Campbell just came in. Now, the good news for those that pitted, it looks like most of them actually did stay on the lead lap. Only ones that went a lap down appear to be Bloomquist, Sigley, Go Lightly, and then Tom Dreiling, who we saw pit a number of laps ago, but had to get a wing repaired. But for Eriksson, for Partridge, for Fredrickson, they're still on the lead lap easily, should we get a yellow, they've just kind of only lost track position, but they're going to probably get it back because everybody in front of them will likely pit.
Been liking watching this driver here in this white and blue number 58, Steve Paulison. He's been pretty aggressive since the restarts, but he's kept it clean. You notice he's not trying to merge up there into the racing line when he's got another competitor up there. He puts the car down on the bottom side of the racetrack and attempts a move and then is respectful at the end of the corner. Now he's back on the racing line, so he's going to try to dive it in here to turn 3. Not going to work out. That was way too fast on entry. It's going to cost him on exit.
Here's an intriguing development. Ryan Walker pitted in. He was on lap 38. I kind of expected that. McCrelly went with him. I wonder if he's thinking super speedway rules here. Always have your buddy, because he was following in behind Walker, and he's going to emerge right with him. So he could have gone for another 5, 6, 7 laps, but elected not to.
My only other thing is that maybe the drivers are getting way, way, way ahead of themselves and starting to plan out strategy, saying, all right, I know I can make it 35 laps. 35 laps by the data is we need to pit right now. And that would make sense, but yeah, draft is important. I just wouldn't have thought to play that game, per se.
Yeah, I agree. And
uh-oh,
Jason Wallet with a bad pit entry. It looks like he's able to carry on, so maybe he didn't hit it, but we came into that one late.
Yeah, I'm going to go back and take a look at it, because I was the one that was mentioning pit road entry. It is so long, and you got so much time to really think about it. The one caveat, though, most of the oval setups, you run a lot of rear brake bias to really try to help turn the car if you're using the brake at all. And if you squeeze that rear brake pedal too hard in a straight line, it's almost like pulling up the emergency brake on your car, and it just starts to slide out of control.
Looks like we got a replay on it. Since he kept going on out, it looked like he was okay, but let's see how dramatic it was. On his way in, hits the binders, sideways, keep it out of the wall, and there you go. Can he get it without hitting it? Wow, just barely able to turn his way out of that one.
Nicely done, and I saw him pull a real cool slide, looking real cool going into his pit box as well. So definitely get rid of those old square tires now.
Is that like cool guys don't look at the explosion behind them? Sort of
exactly. Thing? Yeah, well, and you got to have cool points. I mean, what's the point of stickers if they're not going to make you go faster?
Okay, last driver that needed to stop. Brian Barnes is in after only 32 laps. So, yeah, there's drivers who I guess, maybe they're kind of taking a page from what you were talking about earlier. They saw they were losing time to their competitors and figured it's not worth trying to trap them a lap down. Might as well come in, get those tires, and try to themselves stay on the lead lap, I imagine.
This pace from Ericsson is unreal. I mean, Fredrickson was behind him when they came down pit road. I know that it wasn't on the same lap, but it was Ericsson and then Fredrickson. Ericsson now has a 6-second lead over Ray Partridge, who's in second place. So maybe something went wrong for Fredrickson on his in-lap or out-lap, but the pace from the number 37 is unreal.
Well, Ericsson's pit stop was about half a second quicker as well, so that helped him there with a small chunk of it. It's a full 7 seconds back to Oscar Fredrickson between himself and his teammate. So yeah, this Jesper Ericsson is definitely the fastest car in the first half of this race. He not only came up through the middle of the field, remember he qualified in 10th and has gained a lot since then, managed to avoid all the problems that the midfield saw. Got up to the front, and now that he's at the front, he's running away. So he's got a target on the back of his back. If we get a restart here, everybody's going to be trying to hold on to him.
Wayne Hutchinson was one of our early leaders in this race. Actually started from the front row. Now he finds himself in 6th. That's Lynn Kinchlow directly up the road in front. And call it everybody now inside the top 9. I would say is on the same strategy, starting with the number 101 car in 10th place. He's got, call it, a handful of laps advantage when it comes down to the tires and fuel. I don't think it's enough of advantage to call him off sequence, but a few laps.
Ray Partridge in second. He started this one on pole. Has one win to his name in his career in the majors, and that was back in 2019 when he snagged that one. He's since had just, I think, 3 top 5s, if I'm seeing correctly, but hasn't been able to trouble the top spot. So he's in a good spot to finally break that long wait. 5 years is quite a while.
Right on the back here is Jason Wallet on Daniel Blomqvist, the 988 car. Seems like Jason now down to the inside. See if that high line is going to really be able to propel the other car, that 988, down the straightaway, and there you go. There's the draft right on back, and with nobody pulling along Wallet on the top side of the racetrack, he's going to have a tough time. If you can carry the momentum on entry, you can secure the pass, but it's going to be an over-under attempt.
So interesting to note that Craig Hawkins has been noted, I guess you could say, for an unsafe pit exit. I don't see a penalty for him yet. I went back and checked. And yeah, he kind of dived up into traffic as soon as he was past that blue line. Now, for iRacing, you are allowed to do that, but with our live steward watching, they, I guess, are keeping an eye to make sure that you kind of blend in safely with the rest of the field. We'll see what happens if they actually give him something or if it's just a warning.
I'm actually curious about that myself. I know that Craig doesn't necessarily have the most racing experience out here when it comes to iRacing, so sometimes just learning the rules of each individual league is something you got to do. Looks like we're going to get a replay here of Craig coming out onto the racetrack, and you're going to see him come out, and basically two cars are going to split him on either side. I didn't think it was anything crazy egregious, but you do have to pay attention when cars are approaching at 220 miles an hour.
So that blue cone, that's when you're allowed by iRacing rules to get up into the racing lane. But yeah, split them on either side. Sure, it gave them a bit of a scare, but everybody got away with it, thankfully.
And I think what they're complaining about is he didn't stay to the yellow line. You notice the car that exited pit road behind him stayed on the yellow line. I think if Craig had stayed driver's left, he was totally okay to be on the racetrack. It's just the one extra lane that he went up. They're probably saying, hey, watch out when you're doing that.
And also one thing I want to clarify is that he might be inexperienced on the oval side, but we don't know what his experience is on the road side, because we're only seeing his oval license here, which is, I think, what your comment is referring to. But
yes,
regardless, he's been holding himself pretty well from what we've been saying. He's down in 22nd. He is a lap down, but we didn't expect much out of him, and I'd say he's kind of stepped up to the challenge today.
100% agree. In my opinion, he's been more of one of the impressive drivers out there. I didn't really expect a whole lot of racing out of the iRating number that we're seeing, but I think he's kept it clean other than that one little hiccup out there that he just kind of got a slap on the wrist for. It's not like he got yelled at or anything or a penalty. So I think he's doing a great job as Garen Batten tried to pass Oscar Fredrickson here. So I wonder if Fredrickson maybe pushed the tires a little bit too early, or Garen Batten has finally said, you know what, this is a decent green flag run. I feel like I can actually go out there and race.
Yeah, this is one of our UDOX drivers who is trying to kind of uphold what they might see as a bit of a threat to their, not championship run, but they've been a big part of the majors for a number of seasons now. In fact, they were up for the title in recent seasons, but now it's been SimRace Sweden that have kind of taken that away from them. He's going to try and defend the inside coming through Indianapolis, but again, that middle line is the place to be, and it's working out much better for Oscar Fredrickson. He gets that pass right back.
It's just going to be flip-flopping between these two. Let's look at the lap time. A 42.7, a 42.7 from both of them, near identical. But the problem, the two cars in front, 42.3 and a 42.4. So I wonder, did Fredrickson maybe pick up some damage somewhere? Because he was right on pace with Ericsson the whole first quarter of the race, and now it seems like he's maybe lost a tenth or two.
Check in. And yeah, he was able to run 42.4, sometimes 42. Well, he had a 42 flat in there. 41.9 is his quickest, but it seems a bit all over the place. I wonder if he was pulling the slipstream off of his teammate, and that was
100%
helping him out.
Yes, but I think what surprises me is that if you're teammates and you're so equal in the championship, I bet you they're running the exact same setup, because we're running practice together all the time. You're running pretty much an identical pace. This is really impressive, by the way, between Fredrickson and Batten, just keeping it clean side by side through turn one that entire time. But I think what's taken me back is more the fall off, because he did have the same pace as Ericsson, but it's not there anymore.
Yeah, running that middle line has been working well in this fight with Garen Batten, who I'm surprised is not trying to take that away from him instead of continually trying that bottom side. As we jump back to Ryan Steele, who's been kind of up and down the order today. At times he's up at the front looking like he might be quick enough for the lead, and then he kind of drops back. He's down to 8th once again. We can't look away from this fight because now Garen Batten gets in front and he shuts the door this time.
About going into turn number 2. Fredrickson, an aggressive late move using all of the slipstream. And you see him kind of keep it a half a car length off of that yellow line there in the tunnel turn, just making sure to avoid whatever bumps he can. I was also noticing something that caught my eye, Joe, on the timing and scoring screen. It's going to update again here as Ericsson goes by a 42.4, but his last lap time was about a second off of the pace. Screams to me fuel safe.
Ah, good catch. Yeah, we've been going green for some time. We've now had green flag stops as well. So this has been kind of that middle part we expected in this race, where things will finally settle in and drivers will clean things up. But then they've got to start executing on strategy, and some are clearly thinking about that as he'll get down to the inside. I wonder if we could ride on board with one of them, maybe see if we could listen in and see if there is some fuel saving.
This is an outstanding race between these two. You know they're smiling. You know they're probably frustrated at each other, saying, just let me lead the gosh dang thing. I want to go out there because look at the gap we've got. 4.5, almost 5 seconds up to Ray Partridge. It's kind of this weird thing. You can think that you're actually pelotoning along by doing the slipstream right. If you slipstream right behind them and then pass going into the corner, isn't that the fastest way? And then pretty much the guy behind you does the exact same thing. Just keep flip-flopping back and forth. Use the slipstream right here. Pull yourself along. Pass into the corner. But it's actually costing them about a quarter of a second per lap when they run by themselves, not passing. It's about 42.2 to 42.4. And they're doing about 42.7s for the most part.
Batten gets to the underside. He's just about clear here. And I thought he was going to move in front of him. Decided not to. Runs the low line. Fredrickson with the middle line. Much quicker off the corner. And that actually looked a bit sketchy that time from Garen. I think he had trouble and the car was getting loose.
The more these two fight, they're drawing in 1, 2, 3 different cars that I see just behind them. That includes Kinchlow, McCrelly, and Hutchinson. Remember, Wayne Hutchinson led the majority of the first section of this race. And with these two just side by side, constantly, turn after turn, it's drawing in all those competitors behind.
Did you see how high Oscar ran turn 3, though?
Yeah.
I don't know if that was intentional, but my goodness, I didn't know you could run that close to the outside wall through there.
It always surprises me watching the open wheel guys do ovals. They do the same thing in Indianapolis, and it doesn't necessarily work the same way in real life. Yes, you want to be able to open the radius as much as you can, but here in the sim, you can really get way up high on the racetrack, and the front end can still grip it, and I do feel like it's an advantage at specific racetracks, Pocono being one of them.
Clearly, because he's now leading the way and is starting to drop Garen Batten a little bit. So Oscar's found a few little secrets here compared to some of the others. 25 cars still out there racing right now, and we've got 16 of them on the lead lap. We've been green flag running since lap 40 in this race. So good to see that we're finally getting some on the board. We're actually just about halfway at this point. This is Lynn Kinchlow, one of those that's trying to catch up to that fight in front of him.
Looks like we've got about, about 6 or 7 cars that are no longer running. Oh my goodness, Batten almost smacked the wall coming off of turn number 3, and that gave a huge run to Fredrickson, and here comes Kinchlow, McCrelly, and Hutchinson is trying to tag onto the back. You see Batten dive down the show the nose into turn number 1, but what was 2 cars is now 4. All
right, this is going to make things all the more interesting. Kinchlow to the bottom side, wastes no time. He gets one of the positions. McCrelly now starting to catch up behind them. Is Garen going to use Lynn Kinchlow in this? Is he going to maybe try and have him be a pick and sneak on by Oscar? Or is he going to continue to try to save fuel? Well, wow, McCrelly caught him fast.
He did, and I was trying to figure out why. McCrelly's got 4-lap fresher tires, so I just think that he's got more grip than the cars that are directly around him. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go draft right up to Kinch and try to actually pass Lynn Kinchlow. Same thing with Oscar Fredrickson. You see Batten be able to pull in the slipstream, but I just don't think he's got the car anymore to attack this one.
Well, that makes me wonder then, do you really think 4 laps makes that huge of a difference between them, that you'd be able to catch him that easily?
Maybe. It very well possibly could be, because look at the data, a 42.5 out of McCrelly passing cars. Garen Batten, a 43.7 that last time by, a 43.5 that last time. So tires, they're definitely worth something.
Wow, I was not expecting that. And that could play a part here, because Jesper Eriksson has the oldest tires of this front group. He's on lap 28 of his stint right now. So the 37 car may get slowly caught. He's got a difference between him and McCrelly of actually 6 laps. And Eriksson's actually pitting. Only 28 laps this time now that we've got a full green flag stint.
I think that's the more important data point here. Everything earlier was so convoluted with the yellow flag laps being mixed into the fuel data, but looks like about 28 laps is what Eriksson did.
Blomqvist, who is a lap down, also pitting in, so he's coming in from farther back in the field. Fortunately, not going to be able to try and game a yellow here to try and get a lap back, it appears, as he's actually going to go probably another second lap down compared to Oscar Fredrickson. But Eriksson back out on track. He'll stay on the lead lap, while Ray Partridge is now our new leader.
And remember, Ray was up there. He was our pole sitter. I expect him to be into pit lane. Eriksson has just been able to have such a torrid pace. I don't feel like anybody's going to be able to catch him just outright unless he makes a mistake out there. We see Lynn Kinchlow hitting pit road himself. But the one thing about yellow flags, or I shouldn't say yellow flags, I should say about pit stops, is that it always introduces a variable.
Absolutely. It's where you can make up a lot of time, especially at a track this fast where we're doing speeds of 200 plus miles an hour. Ray Partridge carrying on. Ray's speeds, though, are way down. He was at a 198 around the corner. Remember, we were seeing 216 for some drivers. He gets up to about 215, so maybe Ray also trying to fuel save a little bit to take this a little bit longer. Maybe he is thinking, trying to play it back to the end of the race. Brian Barnes here in 12th. Is he going to be pitting in? No, he's going to stay out. But similar speeds out of this number 4 machine as we check back in with Garen Batten. This time, he's fighting with Wayne Hutchison, who's on lap 29. So Wayne may be one of those that's trying to stretch this race out and make it a few extra laps. Let's see if either of them decides to pit in this time. Nope, they're both carrying on. But it looks like Ray Partridge is finally pitting in. He was up towards the front.
He was up towards the front, and it's always important to stop in your marks. Don't beat yourself on the racetrack. I see Fredrickson had a 9.5 second stop out there. Where is Eriksson? Jesper Eriksson. What happened to Eriksson that I'm seeing? Oh, I'm sorry. I just am a little bit convoluted that Fredrickson has not come down pit road yet.
Yeah. Eriksson is pitted. Fredrickson has not. And let's see. Do we have anybody? Yeah, we've got a number of them saying they're pitting in, including Fredrickson. So he's pitting now. McCrelly does not, which we kind of expected. We know he can go a little bit longer. Looks like Wayne Hutchison, Garen Batten also pitting. I see Aiden Campbell now coming in. Daniel Holmer will stay out. But many of the lead drivers are calling it time for a pit stop. 31 laps for many of them. So they can go longer than what we saw from Jesper Eriksson. But we know Eriksson was leading this race without anybody to help.
I think that was going to be my point. I do think that 3 laps might be a little bit much for that. But it could also just be hammered down, and he's not trying to fuel save at all. If you try to fuel save, even if you start at the beginning, it's actually pretty impressive what the results can be. But if you don't try at all, you're just 100% on throttle pretty much the whole time around Pocono here, you will have a pretty bad fuel burn rate.
You said he looked quite faster than a number of other cars. So, yeah, I think he was pushing this one, knowing that he didn't really have much other choice in comparison, because everybody else is going to be able to save more fuel behind him. Back with Brian Barnes and Jesper Eriksson. Jesper makes easy work of the number 4, and he's gone.
It's also those lap times. Eriksson a 42.0 on those fresh tires. Looking at McCrelly up front, 42.3. So yeah, you definitely are worth something when it comes down to the tires. And when you pit 3 or 4 laps early, like what we saw Eriksson do, you're actually capitalizing on speed as well.
Ulmer pits in, so does Steele and McCrelly. That gives the lead over to Hockenschut, actually. Lap 28 on his stint. And Robert Deloach, who we saw involved in an early wreck, is now back out there in second place. Both Schut and Deloach have used their spare cars, but they're leading this race, admittedly, on strategy. That goes to show you why you just can't give up in the majors. That spare car can be a huge help.
I think I see more pit stops going on. Daniel Homer has hit pit road in his number 987 machine. I expect this car right here, Hockenschut, to be coming down pit lane pretty soon. In fact, Robert Deloach was the car right behind in that second place Joe was just talking about. A really good comeback drive. Finally hits pit lane.
So halfway through, we've got 1 down, 1 to go. And Deloach going to take his service. Hockenschut stays out, still holds on to the lead. But this now means that Jesper Eriksson's back into P2. Although he's ahead of Stephen Paulison, it looks like, along with Brian Barnes, who we saw him pass. So next one down that's on the similar strategy is Ray Partridge, and it's a pretty big gap between them.
He grew it again, didn't he? In the pit stops, we're so used to, especially in sim racing, seeing the long fuel save game pay off more than the short sprint go as fast as you can. But right now, Eriksson is executing this perfectly. He is growing the gap every single pit stop he comes down. It was about 4, maybe 5 seconds, but what I'm seeing now is this right, 7+?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's 10 seconds between Eriksson and Partridge, and Fredriksson is 13 seconds behind him. I mean, Eriksson is blitzing the field, and I can hear, some people saying, well, what about a yellow? It's going to bring him right back to the field. I don't think it matters, because a yellow resets the pits too. Yeah.
No, yeah, it'll pretty much reset everything. The only thing that would really catch Eriksson out is that if he was like completely in the first 20%, maybe the first 30% of a fuel stint, and then a yellow came out and he did not come in. But I don't see it happening. I think we got rid of a lot of the riffraff early on, so the yellow flags aren't going to be as abundant, and that'll help his case as well.
I do believe, if I could make a prediction, that we'll start to see some yellows at the end of this race. It might not be the case, but that will start to ramp it up. And that's only if we get some close racing. If it stays spread out like it is here, it could stay green to the finish. But we'll have to wait and see. It's a long ways. As we check out Mike Golightly, who is down in 24th position. This is second to last of those still running right now, actually. Michael Hogg going to get back out on track.
Stays nice and down to that yellow painted line. I think that's what race control, the race admins are looking for. And you see even the acceleration zone is all the way towards turn number 2 down here. So I think that's why we saw race control jump on the number 22 earlier. It's just the closing rate going into turn number 1, pretty drastic, and this driver did a nice job blending back out.
I think Hogg gets our Dory Award today. He's actually not too far back. He's only 2 laps down, but he's carrying on. He's the last car running currently in that 744, and he's not giving it up. He's going to see if he can get any more positions. Craig Hawkins, though, did he just get a spot from Craig just now? Is he out of this race? Yeah, he's disconnected.
Yeah. That was the driver that I was just talking about not too long ago, and he was on the racetrack, but you're right. The 22 has officially disconnected. I'm trying to back it up, see exactly what happened, or maybe it just wasn't agreeing with the driver, Pocono, that being.
Yeah, he parked it in pit lane, hopped out of the car, and, you know, maybe because of the lack of oval experience, he felt like, I don't want to risk anybody else's race. I'm not doing much except circulating here, so could be why he hopped out. We're just speculating at this point. I would love to get to chat with him and see what happened, because like we said, we both were quite impressed with, based on expectations of what we thought would happen with Craig. He did a very good job today.
I'm going to be a little bit of a realist as well. If you don't do a lot of oval racing and you come out here, remember, this is an open setup. What if you pick a setup or just the iRacing stock setup that just isn't fast, right? And you can't do anything with it. It gets to be pretty frustrating inside as a driver. And once you've done 100 laps and you've made no headway at all, you might want to give your forehead a chance from banging off of the wall.
Whoa, speaking of banging off the wall, who was that in the background behind Sigley? Rob Courtney. Now, the car is able to carry on, but he definitely gave it a good brush, and he's off pace. So let's see if he has to pit here or yeah, he's going to have to. He's got a meatball flag, so he hit it hard enough that car is not safe.
I think he'll be able to get it around to pit road, though. I don't see anybody call it directly behind Courtney here. So as long as he doesn't overspeed, remember, you've got a damaged car. Don't go over the limit. Just bring it back down onto pit road and leave the racetrack nice and green.
And see, this is the sort of thing I feel like could be a danger at the end of the race. If we get down to 30, 20 laps to go or so, and somebody like Rob does have a problem and does bring out the yellow, that bunches the field up. That means opportunities are there that we wouldn't see as it runs right now, and that will ramp up the intensity to a great degree. Rob going to get repairs. Does he have a spare car?
Yeah, I saw that bodywork definitely bounce back out on that right side pod there. So he definitely took that spare car. And to your point about maybe later in the race, I think what our leader is hoping to do is probably lap more cars. His pace is incredible out there, and if he is able to gain that lap time every single pit stop, only the top 12 are actually on the lead lap right now. The more he can knock one lap down, the safer he gets towards the end.
Yeah, that's a good point. And in the past, there have been races where we've seen only the leader finish the full length of the race before. And I'm not talking about Le Mans. I'm talking about their regular races in the series here at the majors. Granted, the one that comes to me immediately was Christian Challenger back at Watkins Glen, when he basically just dominated the field. So that was a road course. I'm trying to remember if we've ever seen it on an oval, though.
Well, it almost is a bit like yesterday's iRacing Petit Le Mans in that GTP class. Now, I know we're talking about a 10-hour race, but it was pretty amazing what that Williams Esports, what was it, the Chill Blast team was able to do.
Kind of curious. I know sometimes we've got Mike Willett, who runs the majors, watching, and sometimes he'll feed us that information. So, Mike, if you're out there, let us know if you've got info on whether or not we've ever had an oval race in the majors where no driver but the leader finished all the laps of the race. But we'll see if he digs anything up. Christian McCrelly doing a very good job today. He's 11 laps into the stint. He's up to third now. He's on pretty close to the same strategy as the leaders. He's maybe a little bit later than him, but for the most part, I'd say he's doing this on pace. This isn't just him strategizing his way up to third.
I do think he's got a fast race car, and I do think that the tires are helping him as well. Like you said, it's a very, very similar strategy to the cars around, but it's a few laps off, and sometimes all you need is maybe that 1/10 or that half a tenth advantage faster than that car in front, and that's just enough to kind of push the driver over that mental edge to say, yeah, why don't you go for that gap? You totally got it.
He's about 10 seconds and some change off of our leader, so it's going to be a big ask for him to catch Jesper Eriksson. But he's almost up to second place, and we've switched away over to Daniel Blomqvist now. As thought I heard somebody scrape the wall there for a brief second. Blomqvist catching up to Sigley in the battle for 17th.
They're one of these SimRace Sweden eSports Pro drivers in the, call it 9.8 cars. 988, you also got the 955 out there, the 987. All kind of representative of each other inside the team there. Oscar Fredriksson trying to chase down that battle we were mentioning between McCrelly and Partridge. His lap times not quite matching McCrelly up front, so if anything, it's actually going to have to be the defense against Lynn Kinchlow, who's directly behind. And Lynn has done a fantastic job, maybe in the wars a little bit early on, but ever since we've gone green flag, he has really, really settled in.
Yeah, been doing a great job. He got his first win in the series after participating for a long time last year in 2023, and is maybe in with a shout if he wants to get a second one here today, but it'll take some extraordinary circumstances if we keep green for him to do that. I've been keeping half an eye on McCrelly because he's down to about 3/10 behind Ray Partridge, so that might become a battle. But for now, we're watching Lynn Kinchlow and Wayne Hutchison. Wayne, our front row starter. Excuse me, no, that's not Wayne Hutchison behind him. That's Ryan Walker. He's a lap down.
Yeah, Ryan pit not too long ago, call it a handful of laps ago, so a little bit off sequence there in terms of where he's running. I've been watching the gap between Eriksson and Partridge. It fluctuates a little bit. It was about 5 seconds when they came into pit road. It was as low as about 3 seconds earlier before that pit stop cycle. We made the comment it ballooned during that pit stop cycle to over 10 seconds. But now it's back down to 9. I understand the drivers are having to deal with lapped cars and get around everybody, but it's just interesting. There is a 3-lap tire delta difference, and it's making a difference.
So some ebb and flow, but not enough, I think, to create a problem if you're Jesper Eriksson, at least at this stage. We all wait to see whether or not we get a yellow to break things up, but for now, they've been just chopping down the lap times and bringing it closer to that 200-lap mark. 500 miles that they're racing here around Pocono. Why they call it the Triple Crown is because it used to be the Triple Crown in the real world. You wanted to win, I believe it's in Michigan, as well as Indianapolis, and then Pocono was the third one.
That makes sense. Call it the super speedways that aren't really a super speedway, right? It's unreal how fast Pocono is. I think people sleep on it. I do think that it's gotten some good credit the last 5 to 10 years or so. It's a fast racetrack. Me as a driver, I always enjoyed fast racetracks. The more technical you got, yeah, you have to be really on your toes in terms of hitting your brake markers and nailing every single apex. But when you get up to these incredibly fast speeds, it's really all about being in tune with your equipment, with your car, and understanding how it's going to slide around, because you will be at that limit and you will be over the limit. You just have to be comfortable in the thing.
Michael lightly sliding around. You saw him get very close to the wall coming off of 2 there. Thankfully did not cause that yellow. And apologies, it was California I was thinking of for the Triple Crown, not Michigan, but similar, pretty much the same track as they've often referred to them. McCrelly is going to move into second place with a very simple and undramatic move past Ray Partridge. So that speed is definitely there. He's about 10 seconds behind, but he's going to get repassed immediately. Ray is not having it.
Yeah, it was a little interesting there. Ray doesn't want to give up what is second place, and McCrelly maybe actually a little bit too wide there in turn number 2. Haven't seen that yet where the really high line actually loses time and kind of misjudges the apex of turn 3 as well. So a little bit of a sloppy back half of a lap here from McCrelly allows Partridge to get about, call it 15 car lengths ahead.
I'm going to try and track him back down. The Italian competing with the American. McCrelly hasn't been here as long as Ray Partridge, who's another one that I think was a part of the original crew here back in the Northwest Majors Club, as they called it in the very first season before they started to expand it out. And Ray, like I said, I think looking for his second win in some time. It's been a minute since we've had him up at the front, and if Jesper Eriksson keeps this up, I don't think he's going to get it today. Jesper just metronomic in the laps that he's ticking off.
He's going to actually be coming up to his pit stop window here pretty soon. He's working lap number 26. We saw last time he pitted on lap number 28. What was that shrinking gap down to 9 seconds has now ballooned back up to 10.5 seconds between P1 and P2. And if we see the same thing that we saw on the previous pit stop, I'd expect that to grow to about 15 seconds after the next cycle.
So up to lap 120 now. So just 80 laps left to go in this event as the battle for P2 comes back once again. McCrelly down to the bottom side, underneath into turn 1. Ray Partridge has the desired line that we've seen so far, and he's going to have the speed, a little bit of a bobble there coming off the corner from McCrelly, so he's not completely comfortable trying to run the low side.
I've really enjoyed the, call it two-car racing that the Majors in Pocono has done with this Indy car format, because you see it's just a draft fest. It's over under which car wants to get the higher on the corner entry and then power around the outside, putting their foot down out onto the front straightaway. But when you have these two cars together, nobody else to draft off of, it just seems like it's a constant back and forth over under, which is really, really fun to go out there and do.
You know, to talk about these drivers and their wins, it might sound not that impressive that they've been around so long and haven't taken as many victories, but you have to remember that there's been a couple drivers that have basically just stole the spotlight in this series, and one of those I had mentioned earlier, Christian Challoner, 42 wins in this series. So there's been times where it's hard to get a win because, well, you're up against some of the all-time greats.
Christian Challoner, certainly. I don't think that you can take his name out of the iRacing conversation at all. And Ericsson,
he went on to work for him.
Exactly. That was my point coming up here. And he's really the responsible one for a lot of the setups, a lot of the baseline setups that everybody drives out there. So if you like jumping in a car and you think it's fantastic the way it drives, it's all down to that driver that Joe was just mentioning.
Yeah, Christian comes in not just as someone who's very fast, but extremely knowledgeable. His degree is in engineering, and so he understands these cars inside and out, and that's why he was so dominant for so long. He would set them up himself, run them himself, and just basically blast everybody in this series. I think he does still compete over in the Pacific side. I'm not sure how often, but
is that even allowed?
You can compete wherever you want, so...
It's like bringing Dale Jr. to a local circle track, you know?
Yeah. That would actually be fun to watch, honestly. But
yes, it would be.
Might go lightly in a bit of an interesting one because he's right between Lynn Kinchlow and Jason Wallet. And neither of them are racing for position, but we know that Lynn is sitting in third and seems to be on the upswing, wants to catch up to McCrelly. Actually,
here
because well, there we go. So I was just going to say, I think we got pit stops happening because we've lost our leader. When did he pit?
Yes, yeah, he pitted just a couple laps ago, so he's already back out there on the racetrack. And you're right, the majority of our front runners, call it the top 7 right now, they're approaching the end of their fuel stint. Some might be in this lap, some might be the next few laps.
All right, so he's been consistently one of the first to pit in. Jesper Eriksson, again, takes that mantle, but it's been working for him as he's been pushing hard without fuel saving and just been running away from everybody. Wayne Hutchison back up to 4th, but we know should be probably around 6th since we've had 2 drivers just recently come in. He was good in qualifying, starting on that front row, but just hasn't seemed to have the race pace. Although he did start out leading for much of these laps. Wow, Wayne gets blown out of the water by Oscar there through turn 1.
It goes down to the setup. There's a difference between a qualifying setup and a race setup, especially when we talk about the open setup leagues. The more time you spend on a race setup at full fuel, it's going to pay off with what we're watching right here. But in qualifying, the more time you spend on empty fuel and perfecting that fastest lap, you get to start ahead in that track position. However, in a 200-lap race, I'm going to take the race setup.
I agree. I much rather get a car that feels comfortable over the long course. So Jesper Eriksson back up to 7th. Make that 6th here soon because Ray Partridge, we saw him pitting in and looking for his stall. He took our pole, so he has to go all the way to the very end, and he hits his marks perfectly. Jesper now goes by him up to that P6 mark. Still needs to catch up to a few drivers, but he's actually got 11 seconds as Ray exits. So the other thing that's working out for Jesper is he seems to come out in clear air and just can really utilize those fresh tires.
I mean, I don't know what it is, but the dude is picking up like 5 seconds every single pit stop cycle. And it's not like his pit stop is abnormally shorter. That last time, 9 seconds in comparison to Ray Partridge, 9.5 seconds. So we're talking about a half a second here, not multiple seconds. It's pretty impressive. Maybe it's the brake marker that he's got going in. Whatever it is, it's working.
Those tires are just very, very good when he comes out of the pits. I mean, you talked about the setup and getting it good over the long run. There is a difference between the beginning and the end of a run often on oval racing. And maybe he just knows to make good use of those tires when he gets out of it. And that car is a rocket ship as Wayne Hutchison pits in just behind Oscar Fredrickson.
I'm going to give the lead over to McCrelly, I believe, who is still out there on the racetrack, lap 29. Same thing with Ryan Steele, about 8.5 seconds behind McCrelly out there. So most of these drivers going to stop on their box. Oh, can't do that. That's definitely going to cost them some time. That was a perfect camera shot of the pit stall, and Wayne just was a little bit too far forward, had to back it up.
That is a real shame. That took a while. He was well past that mark, too. McCrelly pits in. Steele inherits the lead now, which means all we need is Ryan Steele to pit, and Jesper Eriksson will be back to the top spot. So that was a relatively quick cycle, but we are still waiting on a few drivers in. Deloach, Schutt, Paulison all still need to pit. But our front runners have all kind of come in within pretty close laps to one another now. They're almost kind of converging.
That's what I like to see. I think that pit stops, they throw a variable into the mix, and whether that means a driver is not going to handle that variable very well, or maybe one is going to excel at that part of the race, it can cause an accordion effect. But when we're talking about having such a long green flag run, I love seeing the green flag racing. I am not complaining at all. But it is nice to get those packs once again together and really get some of the excitement going on.
And McCrelly came out right with his old sparring partner, Ray Partridge. Partridge is going to have the speed off the corner and get back in front of him. But, yeah, I mean, this is more what we expected, right? Where the drivers come out where they were. And for some reason, Eriksson does not.
He's just fast, isn't he?
Yeah.
The 37 car, I'll go analyze, because usually where those gaps come from is the in-lap and the out-lap. I don't expect a whole lot to be done on the out-lap per se, because it's sequential boxes. It's not like you're using the clutch and going up through the gears. But I do expect a difference on the in-lap, especially that brake marker.
So Partridge gets that spot back off of 3. This honestly might wind up being the battle to watch. Steve Paulison fighting for what is third place. Or excuse me, no, that's not. Again, I get caught out by the lap traffic. That's Daniel Blomqvist there in behind him. Steve Paulison still needs to pit stop here in that 58 car. He's trying to catch up to Hakenschut, who also owes us a pit stop. He's about 1.5 seconds behind. So there's a little gap there, but not monstrous. There's Mark Redeker as well, who goes by Tom Dreiling around the outside of turn 3 for 19th.
And I'm doing the math over here between the pit stop cycles to really kind of see exactly where Ericsson is gaining this time. And I can tell you just flat out, it's definitely in the in-lap. There's about 3/4 of a second to be gained in the in-lap, and then about 1.5 seconds to be gained on the out-lap. I think just combine that with another 0.5 second shorter inside the stall itself. He's just being very efficient.
That's incredibly impressive. Hakenschut, we saw pitting in, is already heading back out. So we check in with McCrelly. This should be the battle for second once we get Steve Paulison to take his pit stop just ahead of them. He's not going to pit this time through. McCrelly gives chase down the back or down the front straightaway on the number 8, but the gap between themselves and Ericsson is already up to 12 seconds.
It's pretty impressive stuff. I think that everybody else is racing for second place. Ericsson just has a fast car. He's got the fast mindset. Doesn't matter if he's got people in front of him or if he's got a clean air. He is going to go out there and set the fastest lap times. In fact, he does have the fastest lap of the race, a 41.7. I don't see anybody else even in the 41.7s. I see a few 41.8s, but nobody in the 7s.
We've lost a few more drivers from the lead lap. We still need pit stops from Paulison, Hampton, Wallets, and Walker, and at least a few of those are going to go a lap down, and we've got 12 on the lead lap now, so we might be down to about 10 cars left on the lead lap. This has been marching forward to nearly 100 laps under green flag racing pretty soon.
I actually think we're going to be down to about 10 cars on the lead lap here pretty soon. I see Ryan Walker's got to come down and pit. I also see that Jason Wallet's got to come down and pit. Josh Hampton, who's further forward in 6th place, I don't expect him to necessarily go a lap down here. Stephen Paulison coming down pit road, taking his next pit stop. But I'm also looking at our lap counter over here. If they can do about 30 laps, they're going to need one more stop officially to get him to the end.
Yeah, you're right. So with us being at about 65 laps to go in this race, that should be enough to go one more stop and get to the end for some of these drivers, not Jesper Ericsson. And Jason Wallet just said he's going to be pitting in. Here's where this strategy might fall apart if you're Jesper, is he pitted 14 laps ago. So he's got to have 2 stops left, I would think.
Let me do the math. I cannot do math on the fly. I got to pull out the calculator. But this is what makes my brain tick. I love strategy. I don't feel like Ericsson would bury himself in a hole if he couldn't get out of it. But you're right. It is right there on the edge. Let me do some math.
All right. While he's doing that, we've got Jason Wallet having pitted. It looks like the car of Josh Hampton has also been in and out. Ryan Walker still needs to take a pit stop. He's 33 laps into the stint. We've seen anywhere from 35 to 39 laps on a full stint, but then some of that is affected by if we get yellow, which we haven't had any for quite some time. Does Ryan pit in? Yes, he is. He's heading on in, and that's it. That should take us through this cycle. But as I say that, Jesper Ericsson already 15 laps into his cycle could be looking for a pit stop, another 15.
Correct. And I do think he has a few different cards to play. If he runs this full fuel stint, he's basically got 48 plus laps to run until he has to come down and get that checkered flag. I think what's probably going to happen, he's going to adjust his final 2 pit stops, or maybe even just the final pit stop to splash and dash, if you will.
I liked that we watched the pit stop with the webcam of Ryan Walker there. Took a big gulp of fluids to make sure that he was hydrated and then was back out on the track. As I can attest, you definitely sweat, even though you're not doing a whole lot of physical work. Your body still winds up getting pretty worked up there.
Well, think about the PC that is usually sitting next to you. Everybody knows a computer runs hot. It doesn't matter if it's a laptop sitting on your lap on the couch or if it's one of these big desktop machines sitting next to a table. They pump out a ton of heat, and then you consider most of these are gaming machines, right? So they got a bunch of fans, they got the GPUs, they got most of the time the CPUs that are really cranking out the heat, those Intel chips. So it is not a warm thing to sit next to. Put the direct drive next to you, put all this other equipment, and yes, it is a workout. Got to keep the heart rate down, but as long as you got those fluids next to you, you should be okay. I'm going to give some extra credit to Ryan Walker. I know that he is a little bit under the weather, which I think it makes everything even more difficult.
You know, I've always wondered, because I know a couple visits ago, one of my doctors said that I should try and get more cardio. Does iRacing, SimRacing count as cardio? Because your heart rate does go up.
Totally. I think that everybody thinks, all right, jogging, running, that's the cardio that you want. But as long as your heart rate is up, that's what you need to do. And more importantly, your brain is focusing. So not only is your heart rate up, but you're using the brain, the most important muscle your body actually has. So it is a lot more exhausting than what you think. Maybe not physically sweating, but by the time you get out, it will be a workout.
All right. Well, I'll tell that to my wife next time. That's going to be my cardio that I've been needing. So
just to have some pre-workout beforehand and be like, yeah, now it's an official workout.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we've been watching Daniel Holmer, and he is on the back of Robert DeLoach. This is for 9th position. We've only got a couple drivers that are this close. Partridge and Kinchlow, the other one that are now battling. In fact, Partridge has dropped off of McCrelly. Here it is right here, side by side, coming through Indianapolis, and Partridge is not going to be able to come away with that one. So Lynn up another spot and reeling them in. This is working out well. I don't think he's got enough for Ericsson, but he's only 2.7 behind McCrelly, and we've still got 58 laps to go.
Nice long run here to go. I do think that McCrelly is probably the most interesting to me because the shorter that Jesper Ericsson runs these stints, the more of a tire difference McCrelly actually gets. It's now up to 7 laps. Our leaders last lap, a 42.5. McCrelly's last lap, a 42.2. Now there is 9.5 seconds between them, but the more that tire difference grows, the bigger that, call it rubber band snap is going to be.
One of the Dog Bear drivers. They've been in this series a long time. They've been known as oval specialists since pretty much the beginning. And you can see they still can back that one up, running 4th so far in this race. A number of his other teammates out here, Wayne Hutchison, another one of the Dog Bear drivers, running in 7th right now, but can't seem to hold a candle to that SimRacing Sweden team, at least for this event, as Jesper Ericsson leads by about 9 seconds ahead of McCrelly. Let's ride on board. Let's take notes here and see what we can figure out from watching the hands.
I mean, what I immediately saw, he's not using 6th gear.
Which would explain the short stints.
Mm-hmm. And it might also explain the speed.
Better acceleration off the corners, you're thinking?
I think that if you're using 20 more horsepower because you're in the optimal rev range, it could be worth something.
Interesting. So finding another few little secrets here for Jesper. Crosses the line once again. Very, very smooth, too, is what I'm noticing.
Yeah, and it's an open setup. Remember, he's adjusted this gearing, guaranteed. So I wonder if this is just sprint mode, right? Go as fast as you can. And then sixth gear is pure your overdrive gear, which is actually how they kind of use it in the real world. Usually fourth and fifth are like your drive gears, while sixth is usually a fuel save gear.
All right, so been watching on board for about 2 laps here, and you can definitely tell why he's leading this race. It looks smooth, it looks fast, it looks in control, and Jesper Eriksson is losing a little bit of time for what it's worth. It's down to 8.7 seconds, but as we said, we kind of wondered if maybe he'd have to enter a bit of fuel saving, but him not using the 6th gear kind of goes against that theory. Don't know exactly what's going on. We are getting close to the final quarter of this race in just a couple laps time, and that may start to answer questions, and especially they will be answered once we get down to about 37 laps to go and we know drivers can pit and make it to the end.
So the math, right? Eriksson's got about 4 laps to go before he hits pit road. If he's doing the exact same stints that we've seen him, that would put him at about lap 152, call it about 48, 49 laps to go. And they make it, what have we been seeing, about 30. So it's going to be, call it 1 2/3 of a fuel stint out there. That might be just kind of the weird speed bump that Eriksson hits, is just being a little bit off sequence.
Yeah, it's the extra stop that will do him in, because unfortunately, you have to be way, way far ahead to try and make that strategy work. And he's not that far ahead. So we're still scratching our heads on exactly what he's planning, but what we can say for sure is that he's been the fastest car of anybody for pretty much the entire race. And should he choose to, he can try and run away.
I think what I'm specifically getting at, too, is that he's left it too late to try to adjust his strategy. If he wants to try to go from, call it 28 laps to 30 laps like his teammates are doing, it's too late. If he does that now, he's still stuck in the same boat of still having to pit twice. So he's got to run as fast as he can until the checkered flag.
Sigley's going to be our first one in, but he's only on lap 22, so I wonder if he had some issues and clipped the wall somewhere. He's not got a meatball, so car seems to be tracking okay. Not sure why he's come in at this stage, unless he is trying to think about figuring this one out to work backwards, because we're down to almost 50 laps to go, which again still doesn't quite work out. Regardless, Nick Sigley is your first one to blink on this latest set of pit stops. Jason Wallet here is on lap 12 of his stint, and he's one of those that pitted much later than those ahead of him, so he's got a little bit more of an open goal here and can go quite a bit longer.
I'm still, the back half of the field is, I think, what's kind of throwing a wrench in my strategy, looking at the live time and scoring over here, because we're looking for about lap number 170. On the timing screen on the left side, we want 30 laps to go. If you pit with 30 laps to go or less, you can make it all the way to the end. That is the magic number that we're looking for. Everybody else who pits before 30 laps to go, you're gambling on either a yellow or having to come back in for sure to get more gas.
And this makes me wonder if the way things have gone for Jesper Eriksson, maybe he expected that we would get some yellows by this point. He figured things would kind of reset for him and he wouldn't have to worry about it. But at that point, I figured he would have been smart enough to maybe back off by the time we got, to the second pit stop in that sequence.
I think that even McCrelly, though, is in trouble, because if McCrelly is able to stretch it, let's say 10 more laps, which is 2 laps over what I think that they actually can do, it still puts him 8 laps shy of that 30 laps to go mark, that lap number 170 that you really need to get to.
Jesper's in.
There you go.
29 laps once again. So no saving. It's been sipping the fuel, gulping the fuel, if anything, in comparison to those around him. And there he is trundling down the lane with about 48 laps left to go. So he's going to have what you called earlier a 2/3 of a stint somewhere in here.
It will be a shorter pit stop time when he comes down. I expect him to go to 30 laps to go and then come back in, basically be the first car to pit. That way you're safe if anything actually happens. I know it kind of puts you in a little bit of a danger, but your pit stop is already done, right? You don't have to come back down pit road. I think the floodgates are opened in these early stoppers. See Daniel Blomqvist also coming down. That magic number, 30 laps to go. If you can make it to that number, you're looking pretty good.
And even going along pit lane, you're looking at 25, 26 seconds to go from end to end. That's not the time you lose. That's just the time it takes you to go from end to end at off speed. So it's going to lose him way too much, even if he has a 2-second splash and dash to get in and out of his pit stall. But we'll watch, we'll wait and see what happens from here. We've been green flagged since lap 40 roughly in this race. It started off pretty slow with a lot of cautions, but it's been nothing but green since then. 24 cars still running on the track as well in this race, but we are down to somewhere around 10 or 11 drivers still on the lead lap.
Yeah, and I think that once the cycle's complete, I think we were down to about 8 on the lead lap. But I just mentioned it, the back half of the field is on a very, very different fuel strategy than really the front half. So if anything's going to happen, it's all about to unfold. I don't expect one of these cars that is in the back half of the field. There goes Lynn Kinchlow down onto pit road. There was a spin, but we will not get a yellow.
World happened there is the question. There was some ghost contact between himself and Paulison. From that angle, it didn't look like anybody was near him. I couldn't figure out why the car would juke left like that.
Really unfortunate for Kinchlow because he had put together such a good drive out there. He was really making his way up through the front, and now you see just a heavily damaged car sitting on pit road. He had to actually take the tow. That's why the guy is waving his hands right here. The virtual tow truck is still bringing him down to the pit stall.
Man, so he will lose some time. He's got that spare car, I believe. Yes, he does. So he'll be able to pop back out there and get back on the track.
McCrelly is spinning coming down pit road. He was able to save it. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but a huge lockup save from McCrelly. He's coming down here. He's actually exiting pit road, but this was on the entry that he almost lost it himself.
That was a massive save. I was able to go and check it myself. This is unbelievable that this 614 didn't lose hardly any time, I think, in this. But he'll emerge about 5th place now that he's done with his pit stop. He still owes us at least one more, unfortunately. A number of these drivers on a bit of an awkward stint here at the very end of this race. Who is going to be able to pit and give us only one more is the question.
I'm looking. I think we have to look back to Ryan Walker, who can make it on one stop. This is the replay. Watch the white and red car. This is McCrelly. Oh, no, this is a different replay. This is Kinchlow getting up into Paulison. We can't really see it from that angle. I noticed that Paulison came off of the wall a little bit. I don't want to put blame on Paulison, but there was, call it about 3/4 of a car width between him and the wall.
Yeah, I don't think those cars should have necessarily hit, even though the sim thought they did. As we said, as we refer to that as ghost contact, there's actually prediction code in iRacing, and sometimes it gets it just slightly wrong. So it's what allows them to race as close as they do, but also it sometimes just gets it just a bit wrong, unfortunately. McCrelly back out there in 5th, as I was mentioning. He'll be 4th now that Oscar Fredrickson is taking his pit stop.
Curious. So, does Ericsson come in 13 laps and be the first to pit, or do you run it all the way empty in terms of your 28, 29 lap fuel stint and then just put in barely enough to make it to the checkered flag? It's always tough on the ovals.
So here's McCrelly and his amazing entry. And this is why I keep saying that you can't count on anything, because twice now in quick succession, we had 2 pretty big incidents. This one didn't wind up being a wreck, but it so easily could have been that full course yellow that we're wondering, will we get it here at the end? And if anybody is eager to fight, it can so easily wind up being a car stuck at the side of the track. So don't think that because we've gone so long with green flag racing that means we're out of the woods.
Wayne Hutchinson drives back up onto the racetrack after taking service on pit road. So move him back out there. I think he's in 12th place right now. However, I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cars in front of Wayne here that still have to stop, that are on at least 23 laps or older. I'm still curious, can anybody get to that 30 lap to go to only make it one more stop?
Steve Paulison's on lap 25, and he's on the lead lap. So he's got a good shot here. If he could stretch it out, if he goes, let's say, 10 more laps, that'll easily put him within the range. And that's just a sprint. Because if we get drivers that are fuel saving, remember, we saw, they could go 35, 37 laps maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would try it. I mean, there's nobody that has been able to pass Ericsson. There's nobody that's even been able to catch his pace. So if you're going to beat Ericsson, you better do something different.
Got to roll the dice. If you're not willing to gamble, you're not going to win the game. Robert Deloach is our next to pit in. I'm watching Steele. Steele is pitting in, so he's likely not going to be able to get to the finish from here because he's only 30 laps in on his one. As behind him, or excuse me, ahead of him, that was Deloach actually that we saw just hitting his stall.
I'm with you. I think if it's Paulison, if he can maybe stretch out +2 on this stint, that would make him have to do another +2 on the next stint. But that's not impossible.
Yeah. Now, Hockenschutz on lap 29 of his. If he is already saving, he could maybe get there. It'll be difficult. Just hit lap 30 now. So we could see something happen with the 101, and he's sitting in 3rd as it sits.
And off the pace, it looks like he's getting past. So I think it kind of lends to your idea that I wonder if this strategy card is starting to creep into the head of some of these drivers.
There's Daniel Holmer. He's going to be a little bit beyond it, unfortunately. He's going to be maybe 1 lap beyond it, especially if he fuel saves, which is going to be frustrating for him. He definitely wants a caution here. Then Hockenschutz is in. That is right on the cusp. I don't think he's going to be able to make it. No,
I just don't see it happening. I think it's all going to come down to Steve Paulison in the number 58. If he can stretch it, call it another +2 on his current fuel stint, that means that he would have to fill it all the way up and then also have to extend another +2 laps on the next fuel stint. But remember, that is eliminating that second pit stop. You can drive this thing way slow in order to get those +2 laps that you need.
Yeah, as long as you don't lose 41 seconds worth, essentially, because that's a lap around here. So, and we know that you are roughly a lap behind when you take an extra pit stop. So yeah, I agree. I think the 58 is very well positioned here. He's currently only 17 seconds behind Ericsson. That's more than enough.
Agreed. I think that we will find out here in the next, call it 3 to 4 laps, because if Paulison has to come in here this lap, there's just no way that you can stretch it +5, call it. If you can do +2 and +2, it's possible. And here comes Steve Paulison right down onto pit lane. So kind of throw that out the window. Let's reset the strategy cards. Everybody still has to come down and make one more stop.
Now we do have Josh Hampton out there. He's on lap 29 of his stint, and he's currently on the lead lap. But of course, that's when Ericsson pitted 13 laps ago. So I don't know what that's going to look like. Yeah, he's going to go a lap down once he takes this stop. So.
And Ryan Walker's in even better position, but just the problem, like you just said, our leader has actually caught him on track. So when he makes that one stop, it's pretty much just going to cycle him back again.
Yeah. You absolutely need to be within one lap of that leader on this one. So we watch Josh Hampton now, and he actually carries on another lap. This is the lap 30 of his stint at this stage. Jason Wallet also on lap 29, but he's already been lapped by Ericsson. So he's...
What happened to Garen Batten? Where did he fall from being inside, call it the top 5, top 7, to now running 2 laps down?
He had a long pit stop at
you're right, 49 seconds. 49 seconds on that last pit stop, which is way long.
So I went and checked on his pit stop, and he's... Oh, okay, so I don't think he meant to pit. He spun out of the final corner, wound up in pit lane, and I think he had to serve a penalty for probably speeding on his way in, unless that car was... Yeah, he probably got a speeding penalty, it looks like. So that explains why he's down in 16th.
It just kind of caught my eye. Same thing with what we saw out of Kinchlow, right? 2 drivers that were putting together a really, really nice race, but then just seeing things kind of fell apart there at the end.
This is Jason Wallet just behind Daniel Homer. Now, is Jason trying to save fuel behind him there?
Well... And Jason is right on the edge, but the only thing is Jason's already 1 lap down. This is for position for, call it 9th place, but they're 1 lap down. So I don't see this making a difference in terms of the top 5. However, it is a battle within the top 10.
I just wondered if he was going full Alexander Rossi and was using the car to try and get just a mega stint here. Obviously, he still would need to come in because he's not going to make it much farther. He's on lap 32 right now.
Yeah, but 32, and look at how many are to go.
Good point. And, well, Hampton just pitted. He was on lap 31 of that stint, I want to say. And he's back.
I do think that only stopping once more will advance Jason Wallet up positions. It's just a matter of how far up, because the gaps do start to get pretty big in these next positions.
Walker's in. Walker was the one we thought may have been the best position, although he's very far down. He was, just as he pitted, Ericsson was in his mirrors, so he was just on the lead lap. So it would be very difficult for him to catch back around, especially since it'll be a short pit stop for Jesper Ericsson this last time, which is coming in about 10 laps or so, it looks like.
I think that there's 2 strategies to be played. Here's Jason Wallet. He also followed Ryan Walker in, so doing the exact same thing as Ryan leaves pit lane and back out onto the racetrack. So when I said that the leader has 2 options, you can come down. He's been doing, 28 or 29 lap stints, so maybe 3 more laps, and you'll see our leader come down and take his final pit stop. Or he will run this fuel tank all the way to the end, his 28-lap stint, which is, call it, another 10 laps, and then hit pit lane and only fill up the car with enough fuel to barely make it to the checkered flag. You don't want anything more than that. That's just time wasted on pit lane.
Here's another thing.
5 seconds.
Is, yes, much closer than we last saw. He's gaining, and he's going to have an even shorter pit stop than Ericsson. Yep. This actually might be pretty darn close between them.
You are reading the horizon perfectly, and you're right. I don't think that 4 laps. Remember, Indy cars fill up with these crazy fuel rigs that really force the fuel into the cars. It's really only a few seconds that it takes to pack that thing full of fuel. I think that might be Ericsson's saving edge, but the pace right now goes to McCrelly.
Wow, this is going to be fascinating. He'll probably make up at least a little bit of time with the shorter fuel stop in comparison. A tiny bit of time, but that might make the difference. We'll have to watch that gap to see if it continues to come down, because with now 29 laps to go, it's feasible that he could cut it short enough that a quick stop could put him in range. Remember, all he has to do is get that slipstream to try and get up with him.
I also wonder if maybe Christian was trying to be a little bit sneaky, because you see the last pit stop time was about 3/4 of a second, maybe about half a second faster than Ericsson. I wonder if he actually maybe took 1 gallon less on the early pit stop, try to start chipping it away early.
Yeah, that could be. There is some variation in the sim that automatically kind of makes it random within certain parameters on your pit stop, and half a second seems feasible. I'd say that it could be, but that also leaves that door open, like you said, that maybe he is trying to play those games as we watch on board with Jesper Eriksson. Now, what does he do here? He's got Michael Hogg. Now, Hogg's going to be much slower, but this is an opportunity for Jesper to try and extend his stint somewhat if he wants to save some fuel.
Remember, we were watching the car earlier, and he was leaving it in 5th gear. He's flashing the lights right now on the, call it pretty much the rev limiter, but he was in the draft. I noticed that he was using 4th gear coming out of turn number 3 here this previous lap, but he had a car in front of him. Seems to be using 5th gear again once he's got that clean racetrack, and I doubt he'll get it up to 6th here at the end.
Let's see if he hits 6th this time. Nope, he's going to leave
that
it.
toe. That toe brings an extra 4 or 5 miles an hour for sure.
Yeah, apparently last lap, he got all the way up to 6th in that toe, so it's definitely fascinating to see the differences that he's elected to go with. And they, like we said, it seems to be working. He's been so quick all race. It's just the fuel that might be his undoing. I'd
be curious. I would love to ride along with McCrelly on the same view. We've watched Ericsson in terms of where his rev lights are. This is an open setup where you can adjust that gearing. I'm curious to see what McCrelly is running.
Yeah, that's a good point. Is he kind of doing a similar thing? Yeah, he's in 5th, but he's very much on the limiter in comparison. There it is, 6th gear down into turn 1. That's going to be easily the longest straightaway. So the question is,
look at that.
Anywhere else?
4th gear into turn number 1. And what that tells me, you see the 2 cars directly in front of him. There's a lot of dirty air both on the high side of the racetrack and the low side of the racetrack. So I think he grabbed 4th gear to really make sure that the nose was able to keep down into the racetrack, not have any understeer. And once again, 4th gear here in turn number 3 to make sure he really gets the car turned and then puts the throttle down coming out.
Yeah, he's having trouble trying to get by them, it looks like. And it's Dreiling and Batten in front of him. Batten we know is quick. Dreiling we've kind of seen around the mid-pack for much of this race. But we'll see if he's able to get by, or could be using this to actually help himself out a little, but don't know. Since he is getting up to 6th gear, Dreiling's going to get to the inside. Will it make it a single car exit? No, not quite. No place to go for that clean air, and now Christian is stuck here with no place to go.
It's a tough position because you got 2 cars that they're battling, right? And it's not like they can just leave the racetrack. Here comes McCrelly. This is the strategy card. Early pit stop from the 614. He's going to try to beat him on pit lane.
Interesting. And that's well within it. 23
I like it.
To go. Yeah.
He was clearly getting held up from those 2 cars. He knew he was going to get held up even more. Come down pit lane and see where you come back out onto the racetrack.
So, it was still 8.2 seconds. So that's still very close.
He took tires.
Oh, well, you know, that I'd say that's a good call, actually.
I don't think so this late in the race. If we were talking about a restart and everybody was stacked together, I would agree with you.
Ericsson's bidding.
But if we're talking about 5 seconds versus 8 seconds, that could be a race changer.
Well, you said that the tires seem to be worth quite a bit from what we saw earlier. So, I mean, if he needs to catch him, I figure he needs that rubber underneath him. Ericsson hits his marks. He's also taking tires. I think Ericsson's trying to cover him off.
100% agreed. This is exactly like what you see in Formula One, where a competitor basically pits and then his competitor mirrors the pit stop strategy, almost identical in terms of the pit stop time to 7.8 versus 7.9. Ericsson is going to be back out in front comfortably.
Wow. Not exactly how we anticipated this one playing out, but we do know for sure those two are good to go to the finish. Steele is 17 laps in, but we know he's not going to be able to make it to the end on his fuel. He's our new leader. Wayne Hutchison is in even worse position. He's on lap 21 of his stint. He sits in second, just about a second and a half behind Ryan.
Partridge also was able to sneak his way in, missed his pit stop, but he's on the same strategy as McCrelly out there, and he's chasing him down. He'll probably cycle out into what is the third place position. Tom Dreiling back here still giving chase to Garen Batten. Actually, this is 4 position for 14th.
Yeah, they've been fighting back and forth for some time. They were kind of what caused that call that we saw from McCrelly and then eventually Ericsson. But Dreiling holds the upper hand at this stage. Is that actually Ray Partridge behind them? Yes, that is. So that's our 5th place car that's starting to approach. And Ray just stopped too. Oh, we missed that.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, that's what I was just saying. I think he stopped at the same time McCrelly did, but he's about 8.5 seconds behind. So we just didn't quite see him on the same frame out there. But he's good to go to the end. I'm looking down the order. It looks like we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Call it about 10 cars still to come down and pit.
Indeed. Hampton and Walker are probably the best position to try to get to the finish from here, but they're 11th and 12th. Both are a lap down currently, even after the pit stop of Ericsson. So yeah, that pretty much puts them out of the running, though they could maybe pick up a few spots from those around them that still need a pit stop in front of them, guys like Holmer and Hakan Schut.
Here comes Fredrickson down on the low side of the racetrack. We'll make that pass nice and easy. I think that this race is more of a what if for Oscar Fredrickson, because he is our points standings leader. His teammate has just been completely dominant. You know, what happened to this 955? Because it seemed like in the first 30 or 40 laps of the race, he was right there with Ericsson.
Yeah, it feels like something seems to have gone awry for that 955. He could still get himself a top 5 depending on how the pit stops go for those in front of him, because he's good to go to the finish from here, but he's about 33 seconds off the lead, and as far as Ericsson is concerned, about 20 seconds off of his teammate.
Watch them all come down the front. Yeah, it is a lot, right? I wonder where it went, because you would think that if there was damage, it would have been fixed on one of the pit stops, so I don't think it was damage. Maybe it's just the track and Oscar not agreeing with Pocono.
Yeah, that could be. It is its own beast, that's for sure. It's really something where certain drivers are good at certain tracks, and maybe Oscar just does not seem to have the knack. And to answer at least one of our questions, most likely, he hasn't used his spare car. If you come down to your last pit stop and you think you have damage or something slowing you down, you'd use that spare car, because at that point, what have you got to lose?
Exactly. But even before that, your pit crew, anytime you come down and stop, you get the little damage repair. And not all of it is required damage repair. Sometimes it's optional damage repair, and you would think that it would have gotten fixed through that, because it doesn't seem like significant damage.
So probably just did not have the pace. Wayne Hutchison in P2 in the number 17 started in this position, actually, but is not going to finish there as the way things stand right now. We are 16 laps from the end. We could still get that yellow that could shake things up. Wayne will stay out at least for this lap, but within probably roughly 3 or 4 laps, we're expecting him in.
And remember, folks, no GWC if we do have a yellow flag at the end of this one. So call it, what is it, about 4 laps here? If we get a yellow with 3 laps to go or less, that's pretty much going to decide the race. But we have not had a yellow flag in, knock on wood, the last 100 plus, almost 150 laps.
101 and the 44 take their service. They're back out, so Hawkenschut goes a lap down, unfortunately. As for Lynn Kinchlow, he's now 2 laps down as that spin and wreck, unfortunately, just really cost him. Tom Dreiling also getting his final service. He'll lose a second, maybe even a third lap. It's been a bit of a bad day for that number 30 car.
I think what I'm most surprised about over here is we have so many different strategies between the fuel stops. I think I'm just surprised that nobody really took it out of the box. You know, I think that there was plenty of drivers that had the opportunity to and really kind of slow down their pace and extend things, but they all just kind of fell in line like cards and dominoes.
See Steve Paulison in, and yeah, I was just going to say, you know, I was kind of wondering if he could maybe try and stretch it out, but no, he's not going to try. And even if he did, the unfortunate thing for him was he was still behind Ericsson, and we know Ericsson had taken his last stop, so he wouldn't have won the race, but just kind of wanted to see someone give it a shot. I think our hope for seeing that Hail Mary is going to be Ryan Walker, most likely.
Agreed. Yes. And we'll just see. Like you said, it's not going to win them the race, but it might jump Ryan from his 10th up to 8th or 7th or so. So we'll just have to wait and see. Like I said, I'm just surprised that nobody up front actually took that Hail Mary.
Oh,
caution flag!
Caution.
Oh,
Wow.
man, this turns everything up on its head. I'm not sure what car it actually is. Maybe Daniel Blomqvist back there in the number 988.
It is indeed, and it was involved with McCrelly.
Oh.
So he could have a penalty coming his way, depending on how the stewards see that one. I haven't really gotten to take a very good look at it, but I know he made contact to bring this one out.
This is really tough. I've gone back and looked at this. I mean, what do you do if you're Daniel Blomqvist? You're multiple laps down. You've got a driver that's currently running in second place. Do you yield with 15 laps to go? I would think so, and that's exactly kind of not what happened. I'm not going to put it on Blomqvist, though, because he left plenty of room at Apex.
Yeah. Okay, this is interesting because we've got drivers that do need to make pit stops. Ericsson should not, but he's 10 laps into this stint. So for these drivers to have 10-lap fresher tires, I don't know. What do you think, Joey? Should Ericsson give up the chance to go back into the lead to get the fresh rubber?
No, absolutely not. Make them go out there and beat you on the racetrack. I think the only thing is if you come down pit road and bring everybody else, that might be your saving ticket. Here comes Ryan Steele. He has to come down pit road. Looks like a few more are going to follow.
McCrelly does. Ray Partridge does. I wonder if McCrelly's got damage, actually, and that's why he has to come in. So, because he had already taken his stop, so he didn't need to necessarily. Here's the replay. Yeah.
And that's a bad view. That's a bad view because if we looked at it from up above, Blomqvist left a lane and a half, even 2 lanes down there at Apex. So I really do feel like it was McCrelly washing up. I felt like probably Christian wants to say, that's a lap car, multiple laps down. Just get off the racetrack. You shouldn't even be in my way. But the problem is he's still on the playground. You can't just punt him off into the wall.
Oh, and unfortunately, we saw a third driver kind of get collected in that, and it was Ryan Walker.
Ah! Oh, no.
Meatball
Did he
flag.
have a fast repair left? No, he's still down on pit road, isn't he?
Yeah, he's already used it. He had a meatball flag, and he is not going to be able to try and show us whether or not you could save the fuel to get to the end. So Ericsson followed your advice. He stayed out. We got another replay. So here's Blomqvist. All right, so we'll get a view from above. Yeah, and Blomqvist is within his right here. Now, whether or not it was a smart idea in the moment, I don't, that's up for debate. But he did nothing wrong. So, interesting. That leaves us with Ericsson, your leader, but on 11-lap old tires. Or, some of those are under caution, so that will help him out. Josh Hampton stays out to get his lap back. We thought he was another one that could maybe get to the end, but he's also going to be on older tires. Still, that will help him out. He'll gain at least a couple positions and move him up to 8th. And trying to see if anybody else is going to get that lap back, as now we're getting our wave buys. Looks like Rob Courtney will get a lap back. Arden Campbell is going to get a lap back, but that's it. So only Josh Hampton able to use that caution to get a lap back. There's Ryan Walker. Yeah,
he's watching his pit crew, isn't he? Right? He's looking at the front left tire. Come on, get that thing fixed. And now he's looking over at the crew chief. Come on, get it fixed out here.
Shaking his head. He's really frustrated with this one.
Yeah.
And he's not a guy that you can fluster easily, so you can tell he's not happy with this situation.
And he's been extremely successful in the major series on ovals. I think I had mentioned that he had won an Indianapolis event maybe a year or two ago with them that I know that he's very proud of. He looks back on that very fondly. It's tough to win one of these races, especially at Indianapolis. A little bit of a shame to see it go so wrong with only a dozen laps left.
So, interesting one. No further action on the lap 185 caution. Blomqvist seems to disagree. His response is, really? ? So, that one will go unpunished. And we will go back to green flag racing with 9 laps to go. We do have time for another caution and to be able to get back green flag racing. However, remember, 4 to 5 laps to go. That's your marker to look for. If we get a yellow underneath that, then the race is over. And there's some drivers playing games, backing way off here. Ryan Steele, he's trying to game it, but he's not going to be able to do so successfully. And this is going to cause a stack up behind him as Ericsson takes off. Do we get it green? It looks like they are safe in behind him.
Yeah, a few cars dropping through the order, and now Ryan Steele falls down to Christian McCrelly in the second place, and this is officially a race. I think that McCrelly's got the faster car. You had pointed out the tires, and everybody else pitted except for our leader.
So much faster. Look at this. He goes right by him down to the inside, and he's going to take the lead away from Ericsson. Also, Ryan Steele, a part of this with fresher rubber underneath him as well. Does Ericsson have anything to make this a battle? Did he make the wrong call on that last pit stop? They come out of turn 3, and McCrelly is running away. I think it was the wrong call.
I think it was the wrong call as well. The only way that everybody was going to beat you is that if everybody took tires and you did not, and that is exactly what happened to Ericsson. He is in a sinking ship.
He's holding on. He's got the slipstream, but it's proving difficult. We're watching Aiden Campbell here, along with Lynn Kinchlow, still running in 17th. He's trying to collect whatever points he can today. But up at the front, it looks like Ericsson was able to reel him in down the back straightaway. The question is, will the slipstream be enough to actually get a pass done at the end? We're coming down to 7 laps to go as we watch Paulison.
It has to be what Ericsson has got to be hopeful for, is just to be able to hang on to the back of the slipstream and then be able to hopefully power by. But I don't think it's going to happen out of turn 3. Just the new tires are so fast through the slowest turn number 3. I think it's actually got to happen in the first half of the racetrack and then defend hard on the back half.
I think you're right. We're watching from Partridge, who runs in 4th. He's battling with Ryan Steele, who can't seem to keep up with those top 2.
Yeah, and our lead has closed in drastically. McCrelly had a problem over the tunnel turn, and so now Ericsson is right on the back as we watch Ray Partridge here try to pass Ryan Steele for what is third.
There is the snake trying to see if he could break that slipstream back and forth, weaving. McCrelly wants this one as they come around turns 1 and 2 once again onto the back straightaway, way far back for Jesper Eriksson. He is lacking the grip in that first corner.
Yeah, definitely further back, and here's the pass here. Ray Partridge is going to the outside of Ryan Steele, so Ryan just kind of falling down a little bit after starting second on that restart there, trying to find his footing on those fresh tires.
What a comeback for Ray Partridge. It was kind of mired down for a little bit. In fact, wow, big washout for Ryan Steele. So much so, Oscar Fredricksson's going to threaten him for that 4th position.
This is the comeback that Fredrickson needed, right? A little bit of a reset to get back out there and leapfrog up those couple positions. There he goes around that number 16 car, so secures 4th place. Actually looks up the road. Ray Partridge is right there through the windshield.
When we hit the line, it is the point of no return. McCrelly, if he gets a caution and is leading this race, will be your winner, but that's a big if because Ericsson's still holding on to the back of him. There you can see riding the middle line that he has for much of this race. Looking good, coming across the line. 4 laps to go, and it is 7/10 between P1 and P2.
I am loving this story of Christian McCrelly coming up here and potentially stealing away the win. It has been all Jesper Eriksson, dominant in terms of the pace, dominant in terms of the pit stop. But what happened late in the race? A yellow flag came out and Christian McCrelly came out of nowhere. We thought maybe the strategy was going to pay off, but no, it is the late call for the new tires. That's allowed him to run away.
Kept warning that that is always a possibility. You have to be on your toes in case of those yellows. Eriksson with the wrong call, unfortunately, and now dropping back. He's a full second behind. McCrelly has broken the slipstream.
If anything, it's going to be Ray Partridge that's going to get by Eriksson. So what is going on inside the helmet there of the number 37? You had everything wrapped up. You had a 12-plus second lead, and now it has all slipped through the fingers.
Oof. Not even the king is safe in his kingdom, unfortunately. And now Ray Partridge rocking up to the back of him, hoping to try and at least take P2. Might be too far back to try and battle for the win on this one. Coming around off of turn 3. He gets a pretty good run. He's got the slipstream. Will he be passed by turn 1?
This is going to be the fight. You're going to see Eriksson pretty much have to go to the high side. He's been committing to the extremely top entry, the highest lane that you can possibly get, because he doesn't have the grip in the first half of the corner. He has to rely on the straight line speed.
Oh, a good run from Jesper down the back straightaway. Next time by, it's going to be white flag. He holds on to him, but he's going to need a major run like that off of turn 1 for a hope at trying to get back into P2. Coming around the final corner, it looks like he'll try that high line to carry that speed, but McCrelly takes the white flag, 1 to go.
And let's just let this sink in, folks. Christian McCrelly started 26th in this race. He has gone up 25 positions, all the way down to about 10 laps remaining. That's how long it took for him to really take control of this lead. And here he is, 2 turns remaining.
I can tell you that behind him, Partridge was able to stretch out away from Eriksson, so he's no longer under threat. Christian McCrelly, he had the speed, he had the patience. He stayed out of trouble as best he could. He definitely got into his own little bit of trouble here and there. But for the 6:14, he is going to win Pocono here for the majors.
A steal of a race from Christian McCrelly. All credit goes to that driver between the strategy, the pace, everything about it. You see Eriksson is a race he wants to forget. I know the 3rd place is nothing to scoff at, but he wanted the checkered flag today.
And you know who this helps out tremendously. Fredrickson, with his pass, was only 1 position behind Eriksson. So our points leader gained quite a bit and put himself at distance from his teammates. Well, at least limited the damage to his teammates. there at the very end. Ryan Walker is going to see the checkered flag. Glad to see him get back out on the track and at least try and bring it home, even if it wasn't as high as he hoped. Man, Christian McCrelly really
out of nowhere
played that one perfectly.
I think that it was all Ericsson in terms of the strategy, the pace, everything, until about 3/4 of the race where McCrelly just kind of showed up.
He is your winner over Ray Partridge, who takes P2. Jesper Eriksson has to settle for third. Oscar Fredrickson, P4, and Ryan Steele with a nice top 5. Then it was Daniel Holmer in 6th. Last driver on the lead, 6 drivers on the lead lap at the end. Brian Barnes, P7, Hockenschut, 8th, Stephen Paulson, 9th, and Jason Wallet rounds out your top 10.
And you got Aiden Campbell back here in 11th with Wayne Hutchinson in 12th, Robert DeLoach in 13th, Tom Dreiling finishing in 14th. Garen Batten had a little bit of a rough day in the back half, finishing 15th. Same thing with Lynn Kinchlow, finishing in 16th, but it was also good to see Lynn finish the race just like we saw Ryan Walker. Josh Hampton in 17th, Nick Sigley in 18th, Mike Golightly 19th, and Michael Hogg in 20th.
Mark Redeker was 21st with Rob Courtney in 22nd. Then it was Ryan Walker, P23, 6 laps down. From there, you start to get to drivers who were DNFs with Blomqvist, Hawkins, Lesko, Ludwig, Holbom, Thomas, Homan, and then the last few cars were out very early, unfortunately, with Scrivener, Watley, and looks like Cody Earl signed in, but I think he did not start on this race. I think we've got Ray Partridge ready to talk to us, it looks like. Love to chat with him to see what he thinks about the end of this race and that sudden twist in the tail. Ray, you elected to take tires. Jesper did not. That got you a second place. Were you kind of surprised that Jesper didn't follow everybody in?
Yeah, I was just, I figured with it being under 10 laps to go that all the lap cars were going to be down behind us. So I figured I'd come in and get tires. There's no real loss starting in 5th or 6th, whatever it was.
And that worked out to be a very good call. You started this from pole. Is second place a disappointment, or considering how much Jesper and others had speed today, do you consider this a pretty good and happy win?
Oh man, I'm super stoked. This weekend was awesome.
So glad to see that you're happy with it. I mean, it was a good finish. I think when I looked it up, you have, I think, 1 win so far in the series. So still don't quite have that second one. Heading off to the last race of the season, it's not going to be Dog Bears Bailiwick, but how do you feel about going to Zandvoort?
Not my favorite, but we'll get there and we'll do what we have to do.
I understand completely. Still, I mean, this is a great way to kind of come into the last round on a podium finish. So congratulations.
Thank you.
That was Ray Partridge here, finishing P2 and clearly chuffed with getting that podium here at the Pocono 500. It is a difficult one to come away with that one. Doesn't look like we get to talk to anybody else. So we're going to close this one out with another reminder about our sponsor. Make sure and check out the Majors Garage. Use our special discount code MajorsGSRC to get 10% off it as well. Big thank you to the Majors for having their charity this time, the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network. Check out our link in the description if you want to see how you can help out. Thanks to the team today, Joey, Daniel, and Dougie. Make sure to check out our social media, our website, and our merchandise store, but also don't forget our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC. Make sure and subscribe. The Dutch Grand Prix will wrap things up in November. That'll be November 10th at 11:45 a.m. Eastern, but be sure to check out our other broadcasts that we have listed here. And until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.
Hey, you know that guy who just before the green flag keys up his mic and asks, "Anybody got a setup?" Well, this is him. This is Adam, and hey, Adam needs some help. On the other hand, this guy over here, this is Steve. Steve is a solid racer and he knows his way around the garage. Steve's problem is time. With a job and a family, he can't find enough time to build competitive setups and to race as often as he likes. But as luck would have it, Steve knows a secret. He lets the Majors Garage crew chiefs do the setup work, so he can focus on the racing. At majorsgarage.com, Steve can get setups for over 60 cars on the iRacing service. So no matter what series he wants to jump into, he is covered. Anybody really should tell Adam. See you at the garage.
Wow.